Chapter 1698, Face Slapping, Round 5-8. Chapter 1698, Face Slapping, Round 5-8. The horse lowered its head, looking dejected. It then mumbled, "I'm not a spiritual beast." Little Phoenix rolled its eyes at the horse. "You dummy." The horse said, "Just because you're one doesn't mean you can insult me." Little Phoenix said, "You're the biggest dummy ever." The horse said, "You." Feng Wu rubbed her forehead and wondered why the two of them wouldn't stop fighting. What was their problem? Feng Wu smiled wryly. "You may not be a spiritual beast yet, but you won't stay this way forever." The horse didn't quite understand her meaning. It tilted its head and gave it some thought. It wouldn't stay this way forever. That was to say, it might have a chance to become a spiritual beast one day. How's that possible? It stopped and stared at Feng Wu in wonder. "That's never going to happen." Feng Wu said, "Really? Why?" The horse stared at Feng Wu with angry eyes. "I know you want to tame me and bond with me, but you can't do it through deception. I thought for a while that you were a good person, but you're a liar." Oomph. Before Feng Wu could speak, Little Phoenix flared up. It stared at the horse, so mad that it wanted to hit it. "What's your problem? When did Xiao Wu lie to you? How is she a liar? Explain yourself, or I'm going to slap you." The horse snorted. "When did she lie to me? Everybody knows that a magical beast talent is determined at birth. The bloodline can't change. I've been a holy beast since I was born, so how can I become a spiritual beast one day?" Oomph. "If you want to lie to me, at least use a better excuse. You're just trying to fool me. I thought you were different from my previous owner, but you're just the same. She used to lie to me like that as well." Feng Wu finally knew why the horse suddenly lost its temper. It had been lied to, betrayed, and abandoned by Zhuo Qingwan before. That was why it had such a reaction. Little Phoenix didn't know about the horse's story, so it asked Feng Wu, who was his previous master. Feng Wu said, "Zhuo Qingwan." "Wow!" Little Phoenix cried out and said in disbelief, "What a coincidence." Feng Wu smiled wryly. "Yes, what a coincidence." Little Phoenix glared at the horse. "It makes sense if your former master was Zhuo Qingwan, because she's a bad person. She's been vile and ruthless since she was little, so it's only natural that she lied to you. How would you have followed her? Gosh, you have my sympathy." Those words were like little daggers stabbing into the horse's chest. The horse was frustrated, but it couldn't hit the flying bird, so it could only run as fast as it could like a streak of lightning. Feng Wu had to grip the reins to keep herself on the horse's back. She cast a stern look at Little Phoenix. "You shouldn't have humiliated it like that." The bird covered its beak and nodded. Somehow, that only made the horse angrier. Little Phoenix said, "But if I don't say that, it'll never move on. With its disposition, it'll frustrate itself to death." Feng Wu said, "You do know it can hear you, right?" Chapter 1699, Face Slapping, Round 5-9. Chapter 1699, Face Slapping, Round 5-9. Little Phoenix said, "It'll only move on and get rid of its pain if it joins us and signs the master pet contract with you." Feng Wu thought, "Can we stop talking about it for a while?" The horse bellowed as it ran. "I'll never sign such a contract. Not in a million years. After this is over, we'll go our separate ways, and I'll never see you again." Oomph. Seeing that it had made the horse even angrier, the bird winked at Feng Wu. Feng Wu rolled her eyes and told it to shut up. The longer it spoke, the more wrong things it would say. Suddenly, Feng Wu frowned. "Wait, I think I hear something ahead of us." The horse had been running in a frenzied state, and Feng Wu had no idea where it was taking them. Little Phoenix listened carefully and said, "I think I hear the sounds of fighting." But the horse was running so fast that the wind filled their ears. They couldn't tell what it really was. Little Phoenix told the horse, "Hey, stop running. You're not helping at all." Although it was still mad, the horse didn't forget its real job, so it stopped, panting angrily. Feng Wu was about to rub its head to appease it when Little Phoenix cried out, "Stop!" Feng Wu looked at Little Phoenix in bewilderment. Little Phoenix flapped its wings and said angrily, "You're not allowed to pet it." Feng Wu was utterly baffled. "What?" Little Phoenix said, "This is a war between the two of us. As my master, you're not allowed to interfere. You must stay neutral." Fengwu cleared her throat uneasily. Crossing its wings and raising its tail, Little Phoenix said, "If you pet it, I'll be mad at you." Fengwu didn't know what to say. She wondered why all her pets were so self-opinionated. When she looked at the horse, it only flicked its tail. She had no choice but to give in. Fine, fine. I'll leave it to you, but that's an internal strife, so can we put it aside for a while? We'll get back to it after we solve the external problem and get ourselves to safety. Okay. Fengwu looked from the bird to the horse. Little Phoenix glanced at the horse proudly. Fine. I don't know about the horse, though. The proud horse couldn't stand such provocation, so it smirked and said, "Of course I can do that as well." Fengwu let out a breath of relief. She had a feeling that things would be a lot more interesting around her from now on, but she would also get headaches quite often. As for the possibility that the horse wouldn't sign the contract and would leave her, she never considered it. She wanted this spiritual pet, and it wasn't going anywhere. Moreover, it had been abandoned by Zhuo. She couldn't wait to see the day when she transformed the horse into an amazing spiritual beast and showed it to Zhuo. Just the thought of that made Fengwu smile. "Why are you smiling?" Little Phoenix looked at its master in confusion. Its master was smiling like a little fool, and Little Phoenix didn't know where to begin to vent its sarcasm. Ahem. Fengwu covered her embarrassment by clearing her throat, and she quickly changed the subject. "That sound came from northeast, right?" Little Phoenix flew up to a tall tree so that it could see further ahead. Chapter 1700 Face Slapping, Round 6-1. Chapter 1700 Face Slapping, Round 6-1. The noise is indeed from the northeast. Two groups of people are fighting, and it's getting very intense, Little Phoenix told Fengwu as it observed the situation. "Wait, the side that's gaining ground is a group of men in black." "Men in black?" Fengwu's eyes lit up. "What traits do they have, these men in black?" Fengwu asked. "They're all wearing black headbands over their foreheads," said Little Phoenix. There was a brooding look in its eyes as it studied the scene. It then scratched its head and said, "I think I've seen these men somewhere before." "Black headbands?" Fengwu smacked her forehead. Wasn't Seven wearing a black headband? Little Phoenix looked at Fengwu with a strange look in its eyes, and Fengwu nodded solemnly. Little Phoenix asked, "So, they're with the oldest prince?" Fengwu nodded. Little Phoenix smacked the branch. "So, the person who's been chasing us everywhere is the oldest prince's man. This is a happy coincidence. Let's kill them." It then tried to head for the spot where the noise was coming from. But Fengwu stopped it. "Wait." Little Phoenix glared at her. "What are we waiting for? That prince almost got all of us killed. This is an opportunity too great to miss out on." Fengwu was lost for words. "The problem is, can you defeat them?" Little Phoenix was rendered speechless. Fengwu said, "Seven alone was enough to make us run for our lives. What do you think all the men in black will do?" Little Phoenix said, "They're not as capable as Seven. I don't think they're spiritual lords." Fengwu asked, "Were they then?" Little Phoenix said, "I think they're level 3 to 5 spiritual elders, but their leader is about Seven's level. Hey, they're going after a group of people in white, and the white side is coming our way." Little Phoenix was very realistic. It did some maths and realized that they really couldn't fight all those people, so it said proudly, "Where there's life, there's hope. Just because we can't win now doesn't mean that we can't defeat them in the future. We can leave now and deal with them later." Fengwu asked, "Where on earth did you learn to talk like that? Stop making excuses." Little Phoenix didn't try to retort. "So, are we leaving or not?" Fengwu said, "Even if I wanted to, I can't." Little Phoenix looked confused. Fengwu smiled wryly. "I broke through my bottleneck when I was fighting the demon chimpanzee just then. If I don't find a place to release that spiritual essence and make a breakthrough, it'll be a big problem." Little Phoenix asked, "Is it that bad?" Fengwu smiled wryly. "Yes, that bad." Little Phoenix asked, "Can you run?" Fengwu said, "If something goes wrong when I'm running, I could lose my spiritual essence or even go berserk. Little Phoenix was speechless. Other people can suppress their spiritual essence. Why can't you? Feng Wu said, I've suppressed it for so long that it'll be a big explosion. I need to let it out, or I'll die. Little Phoenix scratched its head in frustration. What are you going to do? Looking around, Feng Wu said, You guys go now. I'll find somewhere to hide until the fight blows over. Little Phoenix said, I'll stay. Feng Wu wanted to say something, but Little Phoenix said, I can hide with you. I won't make any sound or cause you any trouble. I can also protect you in critical moments. Anyway, I'm not leaving. Chapter 1701, Face Slapping, Round 6-2. Chapter 1701, Face Slapping, Round 6-2. Since Little Phoenix was so persistent, there was nothing Feng Wu could say. She then looked at the horse. The look on its face was complicated. It didn't speak and only gazed at Feng Wu with a serious look in its eyes. It seemed angry but expectant at the same time. Feng Wu heaved a sigh. You can go now. The horse looked frustrated as it stared at Feng Wu. Feng Wu patted its head. After all, we haven't signed any contract yet, and I already owe you a lot from before. I can't bring you any more danger. You can leave now. Be safe. The horse glared at Feng Wu. It was very pissed. Little Phoenix stood on Feng Wu's shoulder and said happily, Look, you're not even qualified to fight alongside Xiao Wu. You poor thing. Feng Wu threw a dirty look at Little Phoenix. Would this bird ever shut up? The horse rolled its eyes at Little Phoenix, turned around, and dashed off. Seeing that the horse really left, Little Phoenix was displeased once again. It told Feng Wu, Look, it left its master at a critical moment. What kind of horse is that? I'm your most trustworthy ride. Feng Wu was rendered speechless by the bird. The horse ran off. It had no idea what it was angry about, nor did it have any idea why it felt so awful. It thought it was going to explode. Before it went around a bend in the road, it turned around and saw Feng Wu and Little Phoenix digging up stones from the ground as they spoke together. It was quite a touching scene. The horse bit its lip and watched. That lousy bird wasn't a good worker at all. It was so lazy. There were so many stones, and it was picking them up one at a time. That would take forever. The horse couldn't stop thinking about how it would handle the job. However, the human girl didn't try to stop it. Tears welled up in the horse's pretty eyes, and before it knew it, there was a wronged expression on its face. Feng Wu didn't see any of that. Right now, she was setting up a formation. She didn't think she could kill those people. All she wanted was to stay out of their sight so that she could make her breakthrough. Soon, she found an underground cave a short distance away. It was no bigger than 10 square meters in size, and the opening was over 10 centimeters above ground. Luckily, Feng Wu was petite. Anyone else wouldn't be able to fit inside. After setting up a concealment formation, Feng Wu picked up Little Phoenix and jumped into the cave. Concealment was her forte, and she had wiped clean all her tracks before she entered the cave. Almost as soon as she hid herself, she heard hasty footsteps. Thump, thump, thump. It was then followed by the clash of blades. There was a giant rock over her head with a small opening that she had sealed up. She didn't have the energy to care about anything else right now. To her, the most important thing now was her breakthrough. Inside her, streaks of spiritual essence gathered into golden balls and dripped into her dantian. The spiritual essence then escaped and flowed all over her body through her energy channels. Feng Wu felt herself burning up, and she felt like she was being ironed out. Every part of her hurt. Chapter 1702, Face Slapping, Round 6-3. Chapter 1702, Face Slapping, Round 6-3. Other people would have passed out from the pain. Even if they didn't, they would have cried out in pain. But Feng Wu wasn't just anyone. She fought as hard as she could to not make a sound. But if there were other people around, they would see the sweat rolling down her forehead. Her clothes were all soaking wet, as if she had been in the water. Water kept trickling down for her clothes to the ground. The pain made Feng Wu's head go blank. It felt worse than ever. Little Phoenix didn't go back into the ring space. It was worried that if it did, it might not be able to come out when Feng Wu was in danger. Hence, it sat on top of a wall 10 meters away. A rock protruded out of the cliff at a concealed angle. Little Phoenix listened carefully for any sounds in the surrounding area as it watched over Feng Wu. Luck wasn't on Feng Wu's side. When the men in black chased the men in white, they just happened to stop in the nearby area. Thump, 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 clang, clang, clang. Little Phoenix grew more wary as it listened to the sound of clashing weapons. It then looked at Feng Wu and saw that the noise was indeed affecting her. She frowned and nearly misguided her spiritual essence. Little Phoenix's pupils contracted and it made up its mind. It bit its tongue and sprayed the blood in the air. It then drew a circle around Feng Wu with the blood. It was a soundproof barrier, and it could only be made by the blood from the tip of its tongue. That was very precious blood, and Little Phoenix wouldn't use it lightly. Given the current situation, however, it had no other choice. Plus, it had a premonition. If it didn't screen the noise, Feng Wu would be significantly affected. She wouldn't necessarily go berserk, but her progress wouldn't be very fast either. According to its master, the more painful a breakthrough, the higher the level. Since Feng Wu was in so much pain this time, did it mean that she would advance more than one level? Buzz. While Little Phoenix was nervously guarding Feng Wu, she made a breakthrough. Spiritual essence rose out of the ground and gathered around Feng Wu. The white spiritual essence wrapped her up like a cocoon. All her pores were open, so the spiritual essence was able to enter her body and rush into her dantian. Little Phoenix stared nervously at Feng Wu while she made her breakthrough. Was it only going to be one level? But one level was already very good news. Little Phoenix kept telling itself that when it saw Feng Wu frown again. Oh my! Little Phoenix held its breath and looked at Feng Wu in excitement. It was like having a baby. Giving birth to one was hard work, but twins would be a pleasant surprise. Meanwhile, Little Phoenix watched Feng Wu in excitement and prayed quietly. Please make it 2 levels, please. Little Phoenix prayed wholeheartedly. Rumble. A rumbling sound filled the cave. Luckily, Little Phoenix had set up the barrier before. Otherwise, the fighters outside would definitely have noticed. Seeing that Feng Wu was making a second breakthrough, Little Phoenix almost jumped to its feet. Ah! Chapter 1703, Face Slapping, Round 6-4. Chapter 1703, Face Slapping, Round 6-4. Seeing that Feng Wu really was going to make a second breakthrough, Little Phoenix almost jumped to its feet. Roar. OMG, she really had a second breakthrough. Little Phoenix had only been speculating wildly. Little Phoenix flew very excitedly around Feng Wu in circles. Had it not been for the enemy outside, it would have laughed out loud. Time slowly went by. Feng Wu finally finished her second breakthrough. Little Phoenix heaved a sigh of relief. After this breakthrough, the difference in Feng Wu and Zhuo Qingluan's cultivation levels wouldn't be so great anymore. Zhuo Qingluan was so intolerable that Little Phoenix wanted Feng Wu to advance as fast as possible so that she could kick that Zhuo Qingluan's ass. However, when Little Phoenix thought that Feng Wu was going to open her eyes, it stared at Feng Wu in disbelief. What was going on here? She had had 2 breakthroughs, so why did she still seem to be in a lot of pain? It was as if her breakthrough wasn't over yet. The next second, rumble, there was the sound of a breakthrough again. Little Phoenix was astonished. This time it was so excited that it almost lost its mind. It stared at Feng Wu with unblinking eyes. How was that even possible? How could that happen? After 2 breakthroughs in a row, Feng Wu still wasn't done? OMG. Little Phoenix couldn't believe what it was seeing. It forgot to blink. Given Little Phoenix's special background, it had seen all sorts of things before, but never had it seen someone make 3 breakthroughs in a row. It wondered if it was dreaming. When Feng Wu opened her eyes, the first thing she saw was the astonished look on Little Phoenix's face. After the breakthrough, Feng Wu felt as if she had soaked in spiritual water. A pleasant feeling flowed through her body, and she felt great. Hey, what's wrong with you? Feng Wu gave Little Phoenix a strange look. Little Phoenix was speechless. Baffled, Feng Wu waved her hand in front of its face. Hey, are you all right? Why do you look stunned? Little Phoenix finally returned to itself. Looking at Feng Wu, it wanted to say something, but all words failed it. Feng Wu grew anxious. She grabbed the bird and shook it. Hey, did something happen when I had my breakthrough? Little Phoenix nodded. Feng Wu asked, Are you hurt? Little Phoenix shook its head. Feng Wu asked, Is the horse dead? Little Phoenix shook its head. Feng Wu was relieved. What then? Little Phoenix asked. You have no idea at all? Feng Wu was confused. What should I know? Little Phoenix gave her an indescribable look. What level are you now? Feng Wu mumbled. I was a level 4 spiritual elder before, so after the breakthrough. Gosh! She suddenly raised her head and looked at Little Phoenix in disbelief. Little Phoenix nodded at Feng Wu. Feng Wu couldn't believe it, and she murmured, This can't be. I only made a breakthrough. Maybe not once, but twice. Why am I a level 7 spiritual elder now? Is it a mistake? Chapter 1704, Face Slapping, Round 6-5. Chapter 1704, Face Slapping, Round 6-5. Little Phoenix almost laughed. A mistake? The spiritual essence is right inside you. Do you think it's a mistake? Feng Wu rubbed her nose. Well, you're right, but I only remember 2 breakthroughs. Little Phoenix gave Feng Wu a strange look. You were unconscious the 3rd time. Feng Wu was amazed. I could do that while I was unconscious. Little Phoenix said, That's right. I was going to ask you that. How did you make a breakthrough while you were unconscious? Feng Wu didn't know what to say. Little Phoenix let out a breath of relief and still sounded unconvinced. For as long as I've lived, this is the first time I've ever seen something like this. 3 breakthroughs in a row isn't even the most surprising part. You fainted, but you woke up without losing your mind. Instead, you made a breakthrough. Little Feng Wu, are you even human? Feng Wu didn't know what to say. She wanted to know the answer as well. This was the first time she had ever experienced such an incredible thing. I'm a level 7 spiritual elder now. Feng Wu looked amazed. She then murmured to herself, I'm a level 7 spiritual elder now? I really am. Little Phoenix nodded. Thanks to the soundproof barrier, the people outside couldn't hear her. Rising to her feet, Feng Wu walked around in the red circle, murmuring to herself as she walked. I'm a level 7 spiritual elder now? I am. Little Phoenix was speechless. This woman is out of her mind. Feng Wu grabbed the bird in excitement. Do you remember? We were told last time that Zhuo is a level 7 spiritual elder as well. That is to say, I'm her level now. I'm amazing. I caught up with her after 5 years. Feng Wu still couldn't believe it. Little Phoenix looked at her in bewilderment. It's like you said, we heard it last time. You made quite the big improvement during this time, but Zhuo is also very talented. I'm sure she's made some breakthroughs as well. Feng Wu said, Even if she has, it can't have been faster than mine. The difference between us is shrinking even as we speak. Little Phoenix nodded. Feng Wu was correct about that. I'm a level 7 spiritual elder now. OMG. I opened my eyes, and I'm a level 7 spiritual elder. Feng Wu patted her head. Little Phoenix was speechless. Wait, what's this? Feng Wu pointed at a white jade bowl on the ground and looked at Little Phoenix in bewilderment. Little Phoenix just looked at Feng Wu in silence. Feng Wu asked, Why are you looking at me like that? Little Phoenix wanted to say something, but it sighed and kept silent. Baffled, Feng Wu said, Hey, if you have something to say, say it. It worries me to see you like this. Little Phoenix said, This is spiritual liquid. It escaped you when you made your breakthroughs. I absorbed those that dissipated into the air, and I put the liquid part into this bowl. And then, Feng Wu looked at the bird innocently. Little Phoenix threw back its head. Aren't you the luckiest girl in the world? Feng Wu said, If you didn't say that, I would still think I'm the most unlucky person in the world. Little Phoenix asked, do you know why it's so hard to make 3 breakthroughs in a row? Feng Wu said, tell me then. Little Phoenix said, because only those with the greatest talent can do it. It proves that you have a lot of potential, and when you're lucky, the heavenly God will reward you with spiritual liquid. Chapter 1705, Face Slapping, Round 6-6. Chapter 1705, Face Slapping, Round 6-6. Feng Wu said, so you're saying? Instead of answering her, Little Phoenix asked, do you know who the heavenly God is? Feng Wu shook her head, but she had a vague idea. Little Phoenix said, the heavenly God is the current ruler of this continent. Feng Wu said, well, that sounds impressive. Although, her beautiful master used to be the ruler of this continent as well. Little Phoenix said, do you know that when you made 3 breakthroughs in a row, you connected with the law of nature, and the heavenly God sensed you? Feng Wu looked perplexed. Little Phoenix said, the heavenly God is already aware of your existence. Feng Wu didn't know what to say. Little Phoenix said, I have no idea how lucky you can be. The heavenly God was pleased, so he rewarded you with a bottle of spiritual liquid. Couldn't you feel it? Feng Wu said, I just felt very nice. It was like basking in the sun after taking a shower, so languid and so comfortable. Little Phoenix said that was it. You absorbed most of the spiritual liquid, and I absorbed a little. The last bit is in this bowl. Feng Wu said, are we going to take it just like that? Little Phoenix said, the spiritual essence is valuable to us, but to the heavenly God, it's just daily drinking water. Would you remember every bottle of water you give to some random person? Feng Wu said, well, Little Phoenix, not every person that makes 3 breakthroughs in a row will get that reward. It all depends on the heavenly God's mood. Apparently, you're very lucky today. Feng Wu chuckled. What a pity. If we can get some spiritual liquid of an advanced spiritual beast, maybe we can turn that horse into a spiritual beast as well. Hey, what's wrong? Little Phoenix was baffled when it heard those words. It stopped what it was doing and stared at Feng Wu with an indescribable look on its face. Feng Wu asked, what's wrong? Little Phoenix asked, do you not know? Feng Wu asked, know what? Little Phoenix said, do you not know that the original form of the ruler of this continent is a spiritual beast? Feng Wu looked perplexed. Little Phoenix said, although I don't know what kind of spiritual beast it definitely is one. That's why I said that you're very lucky. Feng Wu didn't know what to say. Little Phoenix said, you were saying that you want to help the horse become a spiritual beast. After that, you made 3 breakthroughs in a row. You're so lucky that the heavenly God showed you his favor and gave you some spiritual liquid. Are you sure you're not his illegitimate daughter or something? Feng Wu cleared her throat. Little Phoenix said, it can't be just a coincidence. I'm not buying it. Feng Wu said, I'm still trying to digest it myself. She still felt lightheaded, because the series of events was simply too big a coincidence. Just then, Feng Wu heard the sound of weapons clashing with each other, so she immediately stopped talking and shushed Little Phoenix as well. It finally occurred to her that there was a battle happening above her head. Feng Wu asked, are they still here? Little Phoenix nodded. Yes, they're still fighting. Feng Wu said, I didn't hear them just then. Little Phoenix said grumpily, that doesn't mean they weren't there. I set up a soundproof formation before to block out the sound. Chapter 1706, Face Slapping, Round 6-7. Chapter 1706, Face Slapping, Round 6-7. Feng Wu was baffled for a moment. Little Phoenix had used that skill before, which meant that it wasn't all that useful. You don't sound so confident, Feng Wu said curiously. Little Phoenix said, hey, mind your words. Feng Wu cleared her throat. Little Phoenix said, our most important task now is to see what's going on outside, right? Forget about how confident I sound already. Feng Wu scratched her head. You have a point. She and Little Phoenix lay flat on their stomachs and looked out through a gap in the wall. One look and Feng Wu's eyes widened. She then turned to little Phoenix. Isn't that the younger prince? After Sapphiro offended Feng Wu, the younger prince had arrived with gifts to apologize. Feng Wu remembered the gifts, which were all quite impressive. Thus, the younger prince had left quite a good impression on Feng Wu. Little Phoenix nodded. It really is him. He wears white, and so do his guards. The other group is pursuing them. If someone on the grassland tried to kill the younger prince, his brother would be the biggest suspect. Seeing the black headbands that were identical to the 1-7 war, Feng Wu was convinced that the men in black were sent by the older prince. Right now, there were over a dozen men in black, but the white side only had 10 people left, including the younger prince. The men in black all seemed to be in high spirits and good shape, while the younger prince's men were almost all wounded, and some were badly injured. Master Hai, the captain of the guards, pushed the younger prince in Feng Wu's direction. He had no idea that Feng Wu was hiding in the cave. All he wanted was to hide the prince. Whoosh! Feng Wu watched as the younger prince rolled into the cave and stopped by her feet. The prince stared at Feng Wu. Feng Wu also stared at him. Little Phoenix almost exploded. It wanted to kick the prince. Why was this man so annoying? The two of them had been hiding safely here and could walk out when this battle was over, but this prince just showed up. You, get out of here. Little Phoenix didn't care who he was. Feng Wu shook her head at the bird. Little Phoenix was infuriated. We hid here first, and we set up the formation to hide our energy. He's exposed us by entering this cave. Soon, the men in black will surround this place and catch us. I'm so mad at him. The prince had a guilty look in his eyes. He had never thought that this would happen. He bowed to Feng Wu with a wry smile. I'm so sorry. I had no idea that you were hiding here. Otherwise, I wouldn't have brought you harm. After checking the situation outside, the prince turned to Feng Wu with a wry smile. This is my own trouble, and I can't bring you into this. Don't worry. I'm leaving now. Feng Wu looked at him. When she last saw him, he was handsome, gentle, and as civilized as any well-taught teenager from the South. Chapter 1707, Face Slapping, Round 6-8. Chapter 1707, Face Slapping, Round 6-8. But right now, his ragged white robe was covered in blood, and he looked a mess. After some hesitation, Feng Wu asked, Are you and your brother the only princes of the Senile grassland? The young prince didn't know why Feng Wu asked that, but he still nodded with a smile. That's right. We're my father's only sons. Little Phoenix snorted. Not necessarily. Your chieftain Senile is still in the prime of his life. The prince smiled bitterly and hesitated. Little Phoenix said, You're about to die. There's no better time than this to tell the truth. Why are you still holding back? Feng Wu realized that he was hiding something, so she gave the prince a half-smile. Would your older brother try to kill you if your father hadn't given his tacit approval? The prince gritted his teeth and narrowed his eyes. There were things that he didn't want to think about, because if he did, he would fall into an abyss. But she was right. He was about to die, so why should he hold anything back? He said quietly, My father is ill. I'm afraid he won't be able to have any more sons. Feng Wu nodded. That explained it. No wonder the older prince could make up his mind and try to kill his brother. Are you interested in becoming the next chieftain Senile? Feng Wu grinned at him. He looked at Feng Wu as if she had gone mad. Was something wrong with his ears, or had Feng Wu lost her mind? He had been running for his life a moment before, and the next second he was asked if he was interested in becoming the next chieftain. He smiled bitterly. Princess Feng, isn't that a bit far-fetched? Feng Wu waved her hands impatiently. Far-fetched or not, just tell me if you're interested in that position. Yes or no? He was going to die anyway, so what was there to be afraid of? The prince forgot about his forbearance and pretense at that moment. He stared at Feng Wu with piercing eyes. Who wouldn't want to sit on the throne? I've dreamed about it because only when I'm on it can I stop fearing for my life. The young prince looked into Feng Wu's eyes and spoke in a serious tone. Feng Wu said casually, What if I told you that I can make that happen? How will you repay me? Make that happen. The prince was amused. Miss Feng, he didn't believe her at all. If it was Master Teacher C. Basie who was saying this, the prince would believe every word. However, she was only a princess of the Junwu Empire. What made her think she could do that? Smiling wryly, he waved his hands. Princess Feng, I'm going out now. I won't put you in any danger. After that, he turned to leave the cave. Feng Wu had been observing the prince this whole time. He was kind, mild-tempered, and upright. It would be a blessing for the grassland if he could become the next chieftain. In contrast, the people of the grassland would suffer if the cruel and despotic older prince inherited the throne. But she wanted to help the young prince mainly for personal reasons. The older prince had sent an assassin to kill her, and she held a grudge against him for that. She decided that she would take what he wanted the most from him. What did he want the most? Needless to say, it was the throne. Chapter 1708, Face Slapping, Round 6-9. Chapter 1708, Face Slapping, Round 6-9. Thus, Feng Wu wanted the older prince to watch as she helped his brother take the throne. She was going to make this his biggest regret. Only then would he realize that he had messed with the wrong person. Wait. Feng Wu gave the young prince a grumpy look and pointed at the back of the cave. The exit is over there. What? The young prince looked at Feng Wu in bewilderment. Feng Wu snapped. Fine, I know you don't believe me, but you'll soon see my capability. Her fingers moved slightly as she spoke, and she flicked them in the direction of the wall. The prince looked at her with a wry smile. This was a granite cave, and the walls were very hard. The idea of leaving through some underground tunnel was preposterous. He had examined the rock as soon as he entered the cave. However, to his disbelief, a tunnel appeared at Feng Wu's command, and it ran very deep. He had no idea where it led to, but it was still a tunnel out of here. It seemed newly made, and there were signs that it had been burned around it. The walls of the tunnel were charred as well. The prince stared at Feng Wu in disbelief. What's going on here? Feng Wu shrugged. Unlike you, I make sure that I have an exit route when I'm hiding. After she and Little Phoenix hid here, she had to work on her breakthrough, so she told the bird to open up an exit tunnel for them. It was true that they were surrounded by granite, but Little Phoenix could spit fire. It was a matter of minutes before the rock burnt down. With its abnormal flame, Little Phoenix opened up a tunnel for them. But the walls of the tunnel were still very hot. Feng Wu pushed him toward the tunnel. Go now. Those men are closing in. Go now before they catch you. I'm not leaving without you. I can't leave a girl behind while I run away. I brought you into this. If we're going to die, I'll die first. The prince stubbornly held Feng Wu's hand. Feng Wu didn't know what to say. Little Phoenix had been holding a grudge against the prince, but seeing his persistence, it began to like him better. Feng Wu said, Fine, if you want to stay and watch, stay. But stand over there and don't get in my way. The prince looked at her in bewilderment and wondered what she was going to do at such a critical moment. What Feng Wu was about to do was quite simple. She wanted to weaken the enemy as much as possible, so she was going to blow up as many men in black as she could. She quickly buried a few things in the cave. An explosive formation soon took shape. The prince looked at her and felt perplexed. What did you bury there? Will it work? Little Phoenix stuck out its chest. Of course it will. Just wait and see. But the prince wasn't convinced, and he reminded Feng Wu, those men are very capable. The weakest are level 3 spiritual elders, and the stronger ones are level 5. As for their captain, he's a spiritual lord. Feng Wu didn't say anything since she had guessed as much. The prince was anxious at first, but he gradually relaxed. He had already accepted the fact that he was going to die. If he could make it out, it would be his lucky day, but if he couldn't, he smiled bitterly. That was practically the inevitable outcome. Chapter 1709, Face Slapping, Round 7-1. Chapter 1709, Face Slapping, Round 7-1. Let's go. After setting up the trap, Feng Wu ran toward the tunnel, dragging the prince along with her. The temperature inside the tunnel was very high, but luckily, Feng Wu was fast enough. She moved like the wind, and the bottom of her feet barely touched the ground. The heat didn't affect her at all. "Captain, the prince is hiding in the cave," one of the men in black reported to the captain. The secret guards had a strict hierarchy. The captain, for instance, was of the same level as 7, which made him the leader of the team. His name was 6. Captain 6 smirked. "Does he think he can run away from us just by hiding there? How naive." The other man said, "Captain." Captain 6 said, "The ground is granite, which is very hard. It can't be hacked open or melted down, not without an abnormal flame." "Huh." Another team member said, "So, the young prince has just run into a trap of his own making, which makes our job a lot easier." The other team members all laughed. This mission had turned out to be easier than they had expected. They had thought that there would be a fierce battle, but the prince turned out to be very naive. The mole had lured him out here without much difficulty, and he had only brought a few guards with him. Naturally, the older prince wouldn't waste such a good opportunity. Captain 6 waved his hand. "Come, let's find the prince, kill him, and finish the job. We can then go back to claim our reward." Great! Everyone was excited. This was going to be a great achievement. With the younger prince gone, the older prince would have no rival left for the throne. They couldn't wait to claim their reward. Captain 6 wasn't a reckless man. He was pretty cautious. With a wave of his hand, the remaining 20 men in black spread out and circled the cave. He then made a hand gesture. One of the men shouted, "Your Highness, come out. We won't kill you." There was no sound from inside. Right now, the young prince's guards had all been killed off, and their bodies littered the ground. Their blood painted the ground red, creating a wretched scene. One of the men in white moved his fingers slightly. He was none other than the captain of the younger prince's guards. He couldn't move anymore, but he was looking at the cave. He had pushed the younger prince into the cave. Tears ran down the captain's cheeks. "Your Highness, I was trying to save you, but I sent you to your death." Tears and blood covered his face. Right now, all that the men in black cared about was the younger prince in the cave. After all, it wasn't every day that they could achieve something as great as catching the prince. One of them shouted into the cave, "Your Highness, are you really not coming out? If not, we're going to set a fire." There was still no response. 6 frowned and made a hand gesture. "Go have a look," he said. "Captain, let me go." "Captain, let me." "Captain, pick me." Immediately, everyone volunteered. They all knew that they might not have such an opportunity again. 6 cast a stern look at his team members. "Everyone, follow me." Chapter 17:10, Face Slapping, Round 7-2. Chapter 17:10, Face Slapping, Round 7-2. "Yes, Captain," the team members replied in unison. The younger prince's captain of the guards watched in despair as Captain 6 led his team into the cave. "My prince." 6 walked into the cave and found it incredibly dim inside. That wasn't right. It was very bright outside, and light could enter the cave, so why was it so dark? More importantly, where was the younger prince? The cave was no more than 10 square meters in size, so where could the younger prince hide? However, at that moment, 6 suddenly had a bad feeling, and he shouted, "Out! Everybody out!" But it was too late. To claim the reward, the 20 or so men in black had jumped into the cave without a second thought. They moved too fast for anyone to stop them. Therefore, when 6 told them to get out, the last man was still at the entrance and blocked the way. Rumble. There was the terrifying sound of an explosion. "Ah!" And people screamed. The younger prince's captain watched with wide, open eyes. What happened? A massive explosion took place in the cave. Flames sprang up, and heavy smoke rose into the sky. The black smoke covered the sky like dark clouds. The ground shook and people's ears buzzed. The ceiling of the cave shattered, and the rock shards rained down. They were like a storm of bullets. Luckily, the younger prince's captain, who was lying on the ground, shielded himself with a dead man's body in time. The dead body was almost shredded to pieces, but the captain was unharmed. At the same time, Captain 6 and his members weren't as lucky. It had never occurred to them that things could go so wrong just as they were about to wrap things up. Since the explosion took place inside the cave, the impact was incredible. 10 men were instantly killed. The surviving ones were all severely injured. No one was unharmed. As for Captain Six, he had been the one to set off the explosion. In fact, Feng Wu had considered this possibility when she set up the mines. Catching the prince was such a big achievement that he would never share it with other people. He would do it himself, so he would definitely be the first to come down here. Feng Wu had studied Six's physique and gait, with which she was able to calculate the possible route he would take. One had to admit that Feng Wu's deductive ability was terrifyingly accurate. Because of his greed, Six had come down here to catch the prince himself, and he had led the team himself. Therefore, he was right at the center of the explosion when the impact hit him. He bore almost 90% of the impact. Moreover, Feng Wu had buried bombs not only in the ground, but in the walls as well. Once the bombs in the ground went off, it would set off a chain reaction. Apart from the bombs, there were steel balls as well. The steel balls flew everywhere. When the bombs were detonated, the cave turned into a living hell. Cough! Six survived, but he was badly injured. His right eye had been pierced by a steel ball, and he couldn't stop the bleeding. Chapter 1711, Face Slapping, Round 7-3. Chapter 1711, Face Slapping, Round 7-3. His right hand was covered in blood, and his arms were charred. He had countless cuts and bruises all over his body. He was covered by dust, and one could barely recognize him. He didn't know what to say. He was furious. It had never occurred to him that the prince would do such a thing. Very impressive. He chose to bring us down with him at the last moment. Six was then caught in a fit of coughing. Find the prince's body. He managed to sit down by the wall. Although the team had suffered great casualties, it was a cost he was willing to pay to kill the younger prince. The rocks overhead had crumbled in the explosion, letting light into the place. They were able to see things clearly. Fighting back the pain, the team searched for the prince's body. They had thought that it would be an easy task, but they soon realized that it wasn't. Wait, where's his body? That can't be right. We can only find our dead brothers. Where's the prince? This doesn't make sense. How can a body disappear? Was it blown away? No. Even if it was, there should still be some bones or flesh left, but there's nothing. They finally began to panic. Six sat up abruptly and stared at his team members in disbelief. He's gone? How is that possible? He then went to search for the prince himself. However, no matter how many times he searched, the prince's body was still nowhere to be found. How incredible! Just then, a team member cried out, "Look! What's this?" Immediately, everyone turned in his direction. One look and Six eyes popped, because there was a passage with an opening big enough for a person to enter. Since they couldn't find the prince's body, there was only one explanation. Did he escape through this tunnel? Someone cried out. Six spat out a mouthful of blood. If that speculation was correct, what did that make him? A fool. Captain, what now? Shall we go after him? The other surviving team members were also on the verge of breaking down. They had been so confident in their victory. But then, the explosion happened, and the prince had escaped at the last moment. Damn it. Let's go. Six supported himself with his sword and rushed into the tunnel. After the explosion, there were only 10 men in black left. They were all injured to some degree, and most of them were badly injured. But no one said a word. Driven by their rage, they ran off at top speed, as if fueled by angry flames. They had no idea how long the tunnel was. Six was so furious that he forgot about his pain. After a while, look, there he is. One of the men spotted the younger prince. He even paused and looked back at them. Chapter 1712, Face Slapping, Round 7-4. Chapter 1712, Face Slapping, Round 7-4. Although they were very far apart, they could see that it was indeed the younger prince. It's really him. Guys, get him. Everyone, 6 included, immediately charged out like madmen. Run, run, run. Meanwhile, the younger prince. He looked at Feng Wu with a complicated expression in his eyes. He wanted to say something, but hesitated. Feng Wu gave him a grumpy look. What is it? Taking a deep breath, the prince fought back his excitement, looked at Feng Wu, and asked how. How did you do it? He had seen with his own eyes what happened. He had smiled bitterly when Feng Wu buried things in the ground, because he didn't think that it would work. He had still been smiling bitterly when Feng Wu set up the formation, for he didn't think the ad hoc formation would work. When Feng Wu pulled him into the tunnel, he was still smiling bitterly, because he didn't think that they would make it. However, they had still been running when Feng Wu then told him to lie down on his stomach, facing the cave. He then saw the terrifying explosion. Heavy smoke rose, the ground shook, and the tunnel almost collapsed. 6, who had been fiercely chasing them, was almost burned into charcoal. Over half the assassins were killed. The younger prince was speechless. He looked at Feng Wu with glowing eyes. How did you do it? What he deemed a miracle was only a mundane act to Feng Wu. She shrugged and said casually, Didn't you see it for yourself? The prince said, The bombs might have hurt the other men, but how did it break through Captain 6's defense? He's a spiritual lord. Feng Wu smiled. Spiritual lords are indeed as unshakable as mountains to us. But are they really? She then grinned. A common bomb may not be able to hurt him, but what about 2, 3, or 7? If 7 wasn't enough, the formation amplified the impact. And if that still wasn't enough, there were also the steel balls. And if those still weren't enough, an enclosed space like that can amplify the explosion several times over. That's to say, it was an explosion equivalent to one with 10 times as many steel balls, said Feng Wu. The prince stared at Feng Wu with an open mouth. Feng Wu smiled. That should be enough to fill the gap between a spiritual elder and a spiritual lord. Moreover, 6 was right at the center of the explosion. He was bound to be injured. What a pity. If 6 had realized it a little later, he wouldn't have had time to activate his defense. If that had been the case, 6 would be a charred corpse now. The younger prince didn't know what to say. Although 6 was injured by the explosion, he can still fight. Will he find this tunnel? The younger prince was concerned. Feng Wu said, Of course he will. The prince gave Feng Wu a strange look. If that's the case, we should run now. Feng Wu gave him an enigmatic smile. Hold on. Without further explanation, Feng Wu began to bustle around in the tunnel. If she could set a trap for 6 in the cave, why couldn't she do it again in the tunnel? Chapter 17:13, Face Slapping, Round 7-5. Chapter 17:13, Face Slapping, Round 7-5. Seeing that Feng Wu was busy burying bombs and setting up a formation again, the prince was amazed. Miss Feng, are you? Feng Wu nodded and resumed working. The prince asked, Will we have enough time? Little Phoenix, who had been helping Feng Wu bury the bombs, threw a dirty look at him. We will if you stop distracting Xiao Wu. The prince immediately covered his mouth with his hands and spoke no more, fearing that he might disturb Feng Wu. Feng Wu rolled her eyes at Little Phoenix. The bird was quite rude to the prince. Luckily, the prince had a mild temper. But he was still a prince of the grassland. Little Phoenix said grumpily, If it wasn't for him, we would never be in such danger. Of course I blame him. Oomph. The sweet-tempered prince only smiled bitterly when he heard Little Phoenix's accusation. Earlier, it took Feng Wu a few minutes to get the bombs and the formation ready, but it only took Feng Wu a minute this time. The prince looked concerned. Will this work? Feng Wu patted the dust off her hands and rose to her feet. I don't have enough time, so this will do. What a pity. If I had a little more time, I'm sure I could finish 6 off here. Shit, they saw us. Run. She then grabbed the prince and started running. 6 and his men had seen the prince, so of course they wouldn't lose him again. Go! 6 led the team. The other men in black picked up speed and sprang off after him. They were so hot-headed that it never occurred to them that they could be ambushed. How naive. Six and his men soon arrived at the spot where Feng Wu had set the bombs. 3, 2, 1, boom. Feng Wu counted down. And she was right. The next second, thump, there was the sound of a massive explosion. The tunnel was an enclosed space as well, so the impact wasn't any weaker than the first one. Immediately, flames surged up. There was heavy smoke. The ground shook. The walls of the tunnel cracked as they watched. Rumble. The tunnel began to collapse. Turning around, Feng Wu saw that Six and his men were buried under the falling rock as black smoke rose over them. Was it over? No, it wasn't. Feng Wu's traps always came in 2s and 3s. When the prince stopped to look back, Feng Wu yanked at him. Keep running. The prince said excitedly, 6 is. The explosion isn't over yet. Run. Feng Wu didn't have time for this. She grabbed the prince's hand and ran as fast as she could, dragging him along with her. Just then, rumble. The sounds of an explosion resonated in the tunnel, seemingly without end. In the wake of the noise, the tunnel began to collapse at a dangerous speed. Run! Feng Wu tugged at the prince. 6 might be able to withstand it, but someone like you is sure to burn up. The prince finally realized how dangerous the situation was and picked up his pace. In the end, Feng Wu practically picked him up and lifted him off the ground. The collapse was getting closer and closer. Little Phoenix flapped its wings and yelled, "Quickly! We're almost at the exit. 500 meters, 400 meters, 300 meters. Chapter 1714, Face Slapping, Round 7-6. Chapter 1714, Face Slapping, Round 7-6. Led by Feng Wu, the prince calmed down despite how tense the situation was. In the midst of the flames and explosions, he found the decisive girl so beautiful. How nice would it be if she could stay with him forever? There was an expectant look in his eyes. Thump! They only had less than 100 meters to run, but Feng Wu realized that they wouldn't make it. The flames behind them were scorching her back. It was very close. Therefore, she picked up the prince and hurled him forward like a stone. Thump! Once the prince flew out of the cave, Feng Wu kicked the wall, and with the momentum, she shot out like an arrow. The moment she was out of the cave, the tunnel collapsed with a deafening sound. Feng Wu lay on her stomach and panted. The prince lay next to her. They looked at each other and chuckled. We made it out. The prince couldn't believe it. Gosh, we actually made it. We're not dead. Tears welled up in his eyes. He had lost all hope when his men died one after another. He had been ready to die himself, but he had run into someone as amazing as Feng Wu. She was a miracle. Smiling, the prince kept his gaze on Feng Wu, and the longer he looked at her, the more amazing she became to him. Who would have thought that Feng Wu, a spiritual elder, could kill a spiritual lord? You really are. Taking a deep breath, the prince didn't try to hide the affection in his eyes. You're the most wonderful girl I've ever met. You're great. Miss Feng Wu had no idea what was on his mind. She thought that he wanted to thank her, so she waved him off. It's no big deal. I'm trying to take down your brother, and helping you is just a byproduct. But you saved my life. I don't know how I can repay you. Miss Feng, I wonder if you... Feng Wu said impatiently, Fine. Repay me however you want. I won't stop you. But we have to get out of this alive first. The prince looked confused. Aren't we safe now? Safe. Feng Wu found the question idiotic. Do you think 6 is dead? The prince blinked, looking very innocent. He's not. Feng Wu said, No wonder your brother has had the upper hand this entire time. Bro, you're so naive. She patted him on the shoulder. To her, the prince was a teenager as naive as Feng Xiaoqi. The prince didn't like the way Feng Wu addressed him. He didn't want to be her bro. But the most important question was, Are you saying that 6 isn't dead? The prince frowned. Feng Wu nodded. Of course he isn't. Spiritual lords are more capable than you can imagine. It's almost impossible to kill someone a whole stage more advanced than you are. Chapter 1715, Face Slapping, Round 7-7. Chapter 1715, Face slapping, round 7-7. What Feng Wu didn't say was that she had messed with 3 spiritual lords in a row today. The young prince nodded. Spiritual lords really are very capable. Miss Feng, you're amazing. I think you're the only person in history who can defeat a spiritual lord when you're only a spiritual elder. He gave her a thumbs up as he spoke. Feng Wu only smiled wryly. Before she could speak, she heard some noise behind them. Turning around, Feng Wu saw what it was, and her pupils contracted. A chill ran down her spine. The noise came from the center of the area where Feng Wu had buried the bombs. 6 and his men were buried underneath, but now something stirred. The dust and rocks shook slightly. Then a hand covered in blackened skin stuck out. The young prince followed Feng Wu's gaze, and what he saw almost frightened him to death. Gosh, you're right. 6 really isn't dead. The prince frowned. Feng Wu gave him a bitter smile. Of course, she had hoped that the explosion would kill 6, since he was a threat to her life. But it turned out that a spiritual lord was as tough as the name suggested. The guy was harder to kill than a cockroach. Even after 2 explosions, he still wouldn't die. Feng Wu thought it was a pity. Just then, the young prince marched toward where the sound was coming from. Feng Wu stopped him. What are you doing? The prince's eyes shone bravely. After the 2 explosions, 6 has to be badly injured. He's on his last breath, so this is the best time to kill him. Feng Wu didn't know what to say. The prince looked at Feng Wu with a solemn expression in his eyes. Miss Feng, it's my turn to protect you now. He then pulled Feng Wu behind him, picked up his sword, and was going to strike the man. Before Feng Wu knew it, rumble. There was a violent fluctuation of spiritual essence. Feng Wu's stomach lurched. She couldn't be any more familiar with that sound, because it had only just happened 3 times before to her, and she was very sensitive to it. She turned to Little Phoenix subconsciously. The bird nodded at Feng Wu. That was to say, she was correct. 6, whose life she had made so miserable, had just had a breakthrough. Feng Wu was so frustrated that she almost cried. Meanwhile, the naive prince was still charging forward. Feng Wu sighed in resignation. Run! It finally occurred to him what had just happened. Did 6? Feng Wu was almost in tears. He was dying, but luck is on his side, and he just made a breakthrough. Do you know how difficult it is for a spiritual lord to make a breakthrough? And I've just helped him do that. The younger prince was speechless. Just then, a black head rose out of the debris, and the black eyes which stared at Feng Wu had a strange light in them. Feng Wu didn't know what to say. Run! Feng Wu grabbed the prince and ran as fast as she could. This was bad. The prince was almost in tears as well. How could this happen? 6 was almost dead, but now. Feng Wu said, I thought the same. But luck is on his side, so what can we do? I can only hope that he'll make just one breakthrough. Chapter 1716, Face Slapping, Round 7-8. Chapter 1716, Face Slapping, Round 7-8. The prince mumbled as he ran with Feng Wu. Isn't that all we can do? Make one breakthrough at a time? Flying alongside Feng Wu, Little Phoenix glanced at the prince. How ignorant! The bird had always despised the poor prince, but the latter was very sweet-tempered. Even with this, he still wasn't angry. He was only curious. What do you mean? Can people make 2 breakthroughs in a row? Little Phoenix raised its chin proudly. Of course they can. I've seen people make 3 breakthroughs in a row. The prince stared at Little Phoenix in disbelief. Little Phoenix felt rather superior to see how ignorant the prince was, so it said proudly, You know next to nothing. The prince said, Can people do that? I don't believe it. Little Phoenix snickered. Why not? You're looking right at that person. He was looking right at the person. The prince looked at the bird. Is it you? Little Phoenix almost choked. It then rolled its eyes at the prince. I told you already, it's a person. Do I look like a person to you? What on earth are you thinking? It scolded the poor prince mercilessly. The prince was used to its attitude, so he didn't mind it at all. He then looked at Feng Wu. Miss Feng, is it you? Feng Wu didn't try to hide anything as she nodded and said, Yes. The prince thought at first that Little Phoenix was bragging, But now that he saw that it was true, he stared at her in disbelief. Really? Did you really make 3 breakthroughs in a row? How's that even possible? That can't be possible. Feng Wu rolled her eyes at him. Why not? She had done it more than once. But Feng Wu didn't spend any time explaining it to him, because right now, their top priority was to run away. Just run, Feng Wu warned the prince. 6 is still making his breakthrough, and his injuries will recover a little in the process. If he catches up with us, we won't be able to run away. The prince nodded. He had never looked so serious. Feng Wu said, let's run down the hill. 6 won't be able to kill us when we get to the campsite. Feng Wu was screaming inwardly. 6 was becoming stronger, and they were now in more danger than at the beginning. Slopes and rivers kept getting in their way. But they couldn't stop Feng Wu. She made a beeline for the campsite, dragging the prince along with her. They climbed the slopes and jumped over rivers. The prince learned a lot of tricks. Small stones could be stuck into a cliff wall and be used as steps. And those small stones could also be used to slow down their descent from a cliff as well. And they could use tricks to cross the river as well. Feng Wu had no idea how far she had run. She just knew that she had to run as fast as she could. Even a second's delay might get all of them killed. If Feng Wu was all by herself, she could have made it out of the mountain already, but the prince slowed her down. 6 was like a blade hanging over their heads, and they had no idea when it would fall. Chapter 17:17, Face Slapping, Round 7-9. Chapter 17:17, Face Slapping, Round 7-9. Although the prince was a man, he wasn't as capable or as strong as Feng Wu. No matter how hard he tried to run, there was a limit to his strength. Turning her head, Feng Wu saw that the prince was drained of color. Even his lips were bloodless, and he seemed he was about to pass out. Feng Wu had to stop. Are you all right? Feng Wu stared at him. The prince was too busy panting to say a word. He was only able to breathe after a long while. I can still run. I can. Feng Wu frowned. Are you sure? The prince nodded. Feng Wu then handed him a bottle each of spiritual essence potion and strength potion. Drink them. Little Phoenix stomped its foot. Feng Wu almost used up her potions last time, and she hadn't had time to replenish them yet. Those 2 bottles were very valuable. How could she have given them away just like that? Little Phoenix glared at Feng Wu. They can save your life at a critical moment. The 2 bottles of potion were like a long-awaited rain for the prince, and he drank them up as soon as he took them. He looked guiltily at Feng Wu when he heard what the bird said. Miss Feng. Feng Wu impatiently waved him off. They're yours, so just drink them. Pursing his lips, the prince made up his mind that if he could get out of this alive, he would marry Feng Wu. She would be his official wife. Miss Feng, Before the prince could say another word, Feng Wu asked directly, how much of your strength have you recovered? About half my strength. Then stop talking and run. Feng Wu rolled her eyes at the prince and dragged him away. They hadn't run fast enough earlier and had only covered 1/3 of the distance so far. It's been 15 minutes, Little Phoenix mumbled as it flew. 6 has probably finished his breakthrough already. Feng Wu gritted her teeth and didn't say a word. Talking would only use up more of her energy. Little Phoenix was still worried, so it looked back. What it saw almost frightened it to death. It swooped down and yelled at Feng Wu, damn it. 6 is chasing you, and he's running very fast. He's like a streak of lightning. The prince felt his knees buckle, and he almost fainted. Feng Wu stiffened and looked distressed. That's 2 minutes earlier than I expected. Feng Wu frowned. This won't do. He'll catch up with us, and none of us will be able to get away. The prince gritted his teeth and gave it some thought. He then looked into Feng Wu's eyes and said, Miss Feng, just leave me here. Feng Wu frowned at him. The prince said, you're innocent in this, and I pulled you into this because I was careless. And now, I'm holding you back. Otherwise, you would have been able to run away on your own. Feng Wu didn't speak. Because he was right. Without him, she could survive this. After all, this wasn't the first time she had fought a spiritual lord. She had made 7 and the demon chimpanzee miserable, hadn't she? The prince had a solemn look in his eyes when he said, So, just leave me here. He then bowed at her. Feng didn't know what to say. Chapter 17:18, Face Slapping, Round 8, 1. Chapter 17:18, Face Slapping, Round 8, 1. Seeing the way the teenager was bravely embracing his death, Feng couldn't bring herself to watch. Little Phoenix prompted Feng. What are you waiting for? It's none of our business, so let's just pretend that we never met him. Just run. But Feng didn't move. No matter how many times Little Phoenix prompted her, she still just stood there. The situation was so urgent that each second counted, but Feng just wouldn't move, which frustrated Little Phoenix and the prince. Meanwhile, Feng racked her brain. There had to be a way. There had to be a way to keep everyone alive. Suddenly, Feng snapped her fingers and grew excited. The prince and Little Phoenix looked at her in bewilderment. Feng couldn't contain her excitement, and she laughed. I know what to do. We can all live. How? The prince and Little Phoenix looked at Feng both feeling perplexed. Feng looked around in excitement. Soon, she saw a muddy shoal. Judging by the texture and color of the mud, Feng knew that it would work. Go, go, go. She dragged the prince toward the shoal. Both the prince and the bird were confused. What idea had Feng come up with? But they didn't dare to ask and chose to trust Feng unconditionally. If Feng had an idea, it would work. She dragged the prince to a spot beside a rock where the ground was harder. She then dug a hole deep enough for one to lie in before she pointed at it and told the prince, Get in. The prince hesitated. Do you mean what I think you mean? Feng nodded. Seeing the muddy ground, the prince looked uneasy. Miss Feng, are you sure about this? If I lay in there, I'll probably be buried in less than 5 minutes. Feng had no time to explain it to the prince. He would sink easily into the mud if he was standing up, but if he lay down with the bigger surface area, it wouldn't be so easy to sink. Moreover, when rescuing someone sinking into a swamp, the best way was also to have them slowly roll out of the mud. But it would be time-consuming to explain such things to someone who had no knowledge of physics, and time was what Feng didn't have now. So, she looked into his eyes and asked the prince, Do you trust me? The prince nodded repeatedly. She kept staring at him. Are you going to follow my instructions? The prince nodded. Good. Now get your ass down there. Feng pointed at the pit she had just dug. To prevent the prince from falling in, she even put a wooden plank at the bottom of the pit. With no other choice, the prince had to lie down in the pit. As soon as he entered, Feng piled the mud on him and covered him up. The prince was covered with mud until only his eyes could be seen, but the rock could block him from sight. As long as you don't make any noise, Six won't find you, Feng warned the prince. Just hide here. If I don't come for you by this time tomorrow, you're on your own. Chapter 17:19, Face Slapping, Round 8, 2. Chapter 17:19, Face Slapping, Round 8, 2. Feng turned around and bolted after that. The prince wanted to say something, but when he realized the situation he was in, he fought back the words he was about to say. Miss Feng, you have to stay alive. I promise I'll marry you. Feng had no idea that the prince had made up his mind. If she did, she might not try to save him, because she didn't know that. She was running as fast as she could. Six was running at a tremendous speed as well. Little Phoenix finally let out a breath of relief and said happily, Well, he's finally not following us anymore. Feng glanced at the bird. Little Phoenix said happily, Without the prince, we have a chance to get out, so just run. Hey, little Feng why are you going into that cave? Do you want to hide and ambush Six? But he's a spiritual lord, and you can't possibly defeat him. Hey! Feng ran into the cave and told Little Phoenix, Turn around. Although Little Phoenix did as it was told, it was still bewildered. Hey, what's going on? What are you doing? You're making me uneasy. From what the bird said earlier, they should be running down the hill, and they would definitely be able to escape. But Feng only made rustling sounds as she spoke to Little Phoenix. If we run away now, no one will distract Six. Sooner or later, he'll find the prince. Little Phoenix didn't think much of it. So what if he does? We're practically strangers to him. We've already saved him once. We can't help him when we can't even help ourselves. Fengwu could understand. To the bird, only Fengwu mattered and everyone else was negligible. However, first of all, the prince has a kind heart, and I don't want him to die. Secondly, we still need him to handle his brother. Third, even if we run down the hill now, do you think that the road won't be guarded? Finally, I've come up with a great idea to get us out of here. What idea would that be? Little Phoenix looked amazed. After all this time, Little Phoenix had to admit that Fengwu really was a smart girl. More than once, she had turned things around all by herself. Turn around. Fengwu smiled at Little Phoenix. When the bird saw Fengwu, it was astonished because Fengwu wasn't Fengwu anymore. Cat 9, Little Phoenix cried out when it recognized the face. Fengwu nodded with a smile. What do you think? Do I look like him? Little Phoenix nodded. You look exactly like him. Fengwu chuckled. Of course she did. This wasn't the first time she had impersonated him. Even Sapphiro had been fooled last time. Let's go. She then put the bird back in the ring. You can't show up in front of other people now, or I'll be exposed. Although Little Phoenix was back in the ring, Fengwu could choose for it to see or communicate with the outside world. At the bird's persistent demand, Fengwu finally agreed that it could see what was going on outside. Chapter 1720, Face Slapping, Round 8, 3. Chapter 1720, Face Slapping, Round 8, 3. I saw Sapphiro just then, said Little Phoenix. She's in the northwest, less than 5 kilometers away. Princess Sapphiro. To Fengwu, that was great news. She had been a little worried just then, fearing that Six wouldn't know who Cat 9 was and would kill him too. With Sapphiro around, however, things would be a lot easier. I'll go to her now. Fengwu ran in Sapphiro's direction, as fast as a shooting star. She wore a skull cap and clothes made from hand-spun cloth, for that was what she had worn the last time Sapphiro saw her as Cat 9. Right now, Six was bewildered. Given enough time, he would make a full recovery, but to hunt down the prince, he had to get up when he was still in a lot of pain. He had been able to sense the prince at first, but for some reason, he suddenly lost track of him. What was going on? Six frowned. He paused, did a scan with his mental power again, and still found nothing. His frown grew bigger. If he couldn't find the prince, what about that girl? Six remembered that a girl was with the prince. The prince didn't know formations, nor did he have any bombs on him. So, that girl had to be behind all this. Why wasn't the prince the one with the bombs? Because if he was, he wouldn't have stayed behind. It almost drove Six crazy to recall what happened. He had brought all his men with him on this mission. There had been 30 assassins, and 10 had died during the battle against the prince's men. However, that sacrifice had been expected and necessary. But with the other 20 men, Six gritted his teeth and wanted to skin the girl alive. Compared with the prince, he hated the girl more. Come out, now! Six yelled at the top of his lungs. His terrifying voice was ear-splitting and resonated in the valley. It was so loud that it made the ground shake. Fengwu was moving from one cliff to another, and the sound made her stumble. She almost fell off. Little Fengwu, steady! Little Phoenix cried out. Fengwu steadied herself. I know, Little Phoenix said, judging by the sound. Six is about 10 kilometers away, while Sapphiro is only 1 kilometer from us. Keep it up. We have to get to her before she meets up with Six. Otherwise, they'll easily suspect you. Fengwu nodded and picked up speed. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. She felt the trees falling behind on either side of her. We only have 100 meters left, Little Phoenix reminded her. Fengwu nodded and slowed down. Soon, she saw Sapphiro, who was sitting against a tree. And Sapphiro was in a rather miserable state. Her neck had been cut by Fengwu earlier, who had used Sapphiro's own blade to do it. And the blade was poisonous. Needless to say, Sapphiro had smeared the antidote on her wound immediately, but to her frustration, the wound was still unbearably itchy. Chapter 1721, Face Slapping, Round 8-4. Chapter 1721, Face Slapping, Round 8-4. When Sapphiro saw her reflection in the river, she almost fainted. That was because her neck had swollen up like a steam bun. And it wasn't just swollen. Her neck was itchy and prickly, as if 10,000 ants were crawling all over her skin. Sapphiro finally realized what happened. Feng Wu had set her up. Feng Wu had poisoned her wound when she wasn't looking. Sapphiro was almost in tears. She wanted to kill Feng Wu and drink her blood. She and Feng Wu were still in the middle of a horse race, and the stakes were very high. She wanted to get to the finish line, but each miserable step she took gave her excruciating pain. Therefore, hours later, while Feng Wu was running from 3 spiritual lords, Sapphiro had covered less than 10 kilometers. Just as Sapphiro, who was fighting back the itchy and prickly sensation, rose to her feet to head for her destination, Feng Wu showed up. More precisely, Feng Wu showed up in the disguise of Cat 9. "Your Highness!" Cat 9 rushed out of the woods, wearing the skull cap, and he ran up to Sapphiro. Seeing who it was, Sapphiro was so excited that she was almost in tears. She was in trouble and needed help now more than ever. "Cat 9, it's you." Sapphiro immediately grabbed Feng Wu's hand. It was a good thing Feng Wu wore makeup on her hands as well, or Sapphiro would have seen through her disguise. Feng Wu feigned an agitated voice as well. Your Highness, what happened to your neck? What's wrong? You don't look well." She was a great actress, great enough to win an award. She had wounded Sapphiro and put poison on the wound herself, but she was able to conjure up a sympathetic look in her eyes. Seeing one of her own in the middle of nowhere, Sapphiro had tears in her eyes. She stopped, sat Cat 9 down next to her, and told him what had happened. In the end, Sapphiro said angrily, "That abominable Feng Wu. When I catch her, I'll cut her to pieces." Cat 9 clenched his fist and said indignantly, "Princess, don't worry. If I catch her one day, I'll kill her for you and offer her head to you on a platter." Sapphiro said, "Cat 9, you're the best." Feng Wu said, "Your Highness, I'm your most loyal servant." Sapphiro said, "That you are. I'll give you a generous reward when we get back." Feng Wu thanked her in an excited voice. Sapphiro mumbled, "When did she poison me? I had my eye on her the whole time. When did she get the chance?" She couldn't figure it out. Feng Wu rolled her eyes inwardly. "Sapphiro, are you sure you kept your eyes on me the whole time?" Feng Wu laughed inwardly. She had at least 6 ways to poison Sapphiro. No one could use poison as proficiently as Feng Wu, since she had learned from her beautiful master, who once ruled the continent. Sapphiro would never be her match. Chapter 1722, Face Slapping, Round 8-5. Chapter 1722, Face Slapping, Round 8-5. She knew all of Sapphiro's tricks. Sapphiro didn't expect an answer from Cat 9, and she murmured, "What poison did she use? How do I neutralize it? Why didn't she just kill me with a potent one? Why did she use this one?" Feng Wu laughed inwardly when she saw how distressed Sapphiro was. The poison she gave Sapphiro wasn't all that potent. It came from the tail of a red snake scorpion, but she had refined it with her special technique, making it colorless and odorless, so Sapphiro couldn't detect it. As for why this poison, because Feng Wu wasn't going to let Sapphiro die just yet. If Sapphiro died, she could only do so after the race was over. It was the scorpion's venom that was causing that itchy and prickly feeling to ensure that Sapphiro wouldn't be able to reach the finish line before Feng Wu did. She still wanted to take all of Sapphiro's wealth, so of course she wouldn't let her win. Meanwhile, Sapphiro grabbed Feng Wu's hands in excitement and cried out, "Cat 9! Cat 9!" Feng Wu looked at Sapphiro in bewilderment. Sapphiro looked excited when she said, "Cat 9, carry me." Feng Wu feigned a surprised voice. "What?" Sapphiro couldn't hide her excitement. "Cat 9, carry me down the hill. I'll reward you generously after I defeat Feng Wu." Feng Wu gave Sapphiro a strange look. Even if she were to do that, she would still throw Sapphiro to the ground a few meters before the finish line. The thought of that scene almost made her feel sorry for Sapphiro. Sapphiro had no idea that the person she was placing all her hopes on was Feng Wu herself. Grabbing Cat 9, she yelled, "Quickly, carry me!" But Feng Wu looked at Sapphiro and feigned a troubled look. "Your Highness, I came here to find some herbs." Luckily, Feng Wu had all the equipment with her. She had taken all the treasures when she raided Cat 9's secret stash, and one of the shelves contained equipment for picking herbs. So Feng Wu took it. Sapphiro grabbed the basket on Feng Wu's back and threw it away, the herbs in it scattering everywhere. To make it real, Feng Wu had prepared everything. However, at that moment, they heard hasty footsteps. Sapphiro and Feng Wu turned to look. A black figure ran toward them. Frightened, Sapphiro almost screamed. She then shoved Feng Wu in front of her as a shield. Feng Wu frowned and smirked. "Good job, Sapphiro. Despite what you say, you still love yourself the most," thought Feng Wu. "Who are you? What do you want?" Sapphiro could sense the killing intent which the black man was radiating. "I'm Sapphiro, the princess of the Senile Grassland. What do you want? I can give you anything. Just stay away from me." Sapphiro's voice trembled. That man was none other than Six himself. Six used to be a handsome man, but Chapter 1723, Face Slapping, Round 8, 6. Chapter 1723, Face Slapping, Round 8, 6. Feng Wu had set him up twice, and he had been at the center of both explosions. As a result, he was burnt everywhere. It was so bad that his skin was all black. "Your Highness," Six greeted her calmly, and the princess found the voice familiar. "Who are you?" Sapphiro frowned and gave Six a suspicious look. Six frowned and told her who he was. "Six." Sapphiro stared at Six in disbelief. What happened to you? How did you become like this?" Six said, "Your Highness, you don't look so good yourself either." Sapphiro stared at Six and said, "You're right. Six, if you run into someone called Feng Wu in the mountains, kill her for me. I'll give you a reward for it." Six didn't look very happy. He worked for the older prince, and he didn't have to help the princess. Feng Wu stood there quietly and tried to be as invisible as possible. Although she had Cat 9's face now, a spiritual lord was very sharp, and she would be in a lot of trouble if he noticed her. "By the way, Six, have you seen Seven?" Sapphiro asked curiously. Six shook his head. "Seven has other missions." "But Seven's mission was to hunt down Feng Wu," said Sapphiro matter-of-factly. Six had no interest in Feng Wu whatsoever. He cupped his fists at Sapphiro and turned to leave. Feng Wu was elated. If Six left, she would be safe. Feng Wu was already a level 7 spiritual elder now, and Sapphiro wasn't her match now. So, once Six left, she could do whatever she wanted to Sapphiro. But maybe Sapphiro had sensed something, and she stopped Six. "Hey, wait." Six frowned and looked at Sapphiro. Sapphiro studied him curiously. "Who did this to you? You made me curious." Six didn't answer. Sapphiro said, "I see that you're looking for someone. Why don't you tell me who it is? Maybe I've seen them." Six asked, "Your Highness, have you been sitting here for a long time?" Sapphiro nodded. "I've been sitting here for almost an hour." Six asked solemnly, "Your Highness, have you seen a teenage girl wearing a red dress? She's about 13 or 14, and she's prettier than you." Sapphiro didn't think much of his question at first, but she almost exploded when she heard the second part. Frustrated, she grabbed some herbs and threw them at Six. "What did you just say?" Six didn't give an answer. Sapphiro bellowed, "Who did you say is prettier than me?" Six was a straightforward assassin, so he said, "That girl is indeed better looking than you are. Although she's the reason I'm like this, I can't lie to you." Sapphiro was speechless. Sapphiro almost choked at the assassin's honest and frank answer, and she nearly passed out. Six said, "Your Highness, if you didn't see her, just forget my question." He then cupped his fists again and turned to leave. He still had to hunt down the prince and the teenage girl, and he didn't have time to waste on Sapphiro here. Chapter 1724, Face Slapping, Round 8-7. Chapter 1724, Face Slapping, Round 8-7. Wait. Sapphiro glared at Six. Why do you think I don't know who she is? I do. Six turned around, narrowed his eyes, and looked at Sapphiro. She's wearing a red dress, and she's better looking than me. There's only one candidate. Sapphiro stared at Six and was infuriated. It's Feng Wu. Feng Wu cringed a little. She wondered if these two people would lose their minds if they knew that the person they were looking for was right next to them. She decided that she would be more careful. If they discovered her, she would be in a lot of trouble. Feng Wu fell back a little to attract even less attention. She wanted to be as transparent as air. Feng Wu. Six frowned. Sapphiro snorted. Yes, that's her. Six said, didn't you say that Feng Wu is Seven's target? Sapphiro said, that's right. My brother sent Seven to kill Feng Wu. Six asked, what is Feng Wu's level? Sapphiro said, she's about my level, a level 3 spiritual elder. Six looked at Sapphiro as if she was an idiot. Then it's not her. Sapphiro asked why. Six said, a level 3 spiritual elder is like an ant, and Seven would crush her in no time. He would never let her live that long. Sapphiro wanted to nod, but when she recalled how Feng Wu had fought Seven, she suddenly didn't know what to say. It was true. Feng Wu couldn't withstand a single strike from Seven, but she was as slippery as a fish and as nimble as a cat. It wasn't that easy to kill her. Sapphiro murmured, it really isn't her. Six said, it can't possibly be her. Sapphiro asked, that girl with the red dress who hurt you, what's her level? That question immediately silenced Six. He looked stunned and didn't know what to say. Six? Six? Sapphiro looked at Six in bewilderment. Six simply stared at Sapphiro. His head had gone blank. What was that girl's level? He couldn't be 100% sure, but she was definitely a spiritual elder. Six felt as if he had just been slapped in the face. Sensing this, Sapphiro asked timidly, could she be a spiritual elder? Six stared at Sapphiro. How is that possible? She injured me. She has to be a spiritual lord. Sapphiro heaved a sigh of relief. Good. That's good. If she's a spiritual lord, she can't be Feng Wu. But the look Six gave Sapphiro was very strange. So, Seven should have killed Feng Wu by now, right? Sapphiro sat on the ground, holding her knees and looking at Six askance. She wanted an affirmative answer from Six. After all, he had sounded so certain. But this time, Six hesitated. Feng Wu is only a level 3 spiritual elder, so she can't possibly have escaped Seven, right? Sapphiro asked again. She has to be dead now, right? Next to her, Feng Wu was speechless. Chapter 1725, Face Slapping, Round 8-8. Chapter 1725, Face Slapping, Round 8-8. She was alive and breathing and sitting next to them. She was nowhere close to being dead. Seeing that Sapphiro and Six were paying no attention to her, Feng Wu caught a pheasant from the woods, cleaned it, and wrapped it inside a lotus leaf. She then wrapped it in a thin layer of mud before roasting it. Night was setting in, and Feng Wu hadn't eaten for an entire day. It was cold in the mountains at night, and she desperately needed some food in her system. While she was roasting the pheasant, Sapphiro and Six were discussing how to kill her. It was a surprisingly harmonious scene. As the mixed scents of the lotus and the pheasant slowly rose out of the mud, suddenly, they heard footsteps approaching. At that moment, Sapphiro was telling Six, Feng Wu must be dead. I know it. Seven. But she stopped abruptly when she saw the person who was approaching them. That was because it was none other than Seven himself. Seven. Regardless of her condition, Sapphiro ran toward him like a butterfly. She couldn't hide her excitement and almost jumped up. Seven. Seven. You killed Feng Wu, didn't you? Tell me you've killed her. Six looked expectantly at Seven. He didn't want to admit that he had been set up by a weak spiritual elder twice in a row. It would drive him crazy. Meanwhile, Seven was His clothes were practically all shredded, and he was covered in hundreds of wounds, most of which were scratch marks. Every bit of his skin seemed to be bleeding, and he was in a miserable state. Seven didn't know what to say when he saw the expectant look in Sapphiro's and Six's eyes. He hadn't felt like crying since he joined the assassin organization, but this time he felt so wretched. He really wanted to cry. Feng Wu stole glances at Seven as she cooked the pheasant. She frowned a little. This wasn't right. According to her plan, the demon chimpanzee would kill Seven, but Seven had come back alive. Had the demon chimpanzee been killed? That wasn't right either. A magical beast should be more powerful than a human of the same level. There was no way that the demon chimpanzee could defeat Seven. What went wrong? Since Seven wasn't dead, what about the demon chimpanzee? If it wasn't dead either, Feng Wu realized that she could be in a lot of trouble. Seeing the teary Seven, Sapphiро was so surprised that her eyeballs almost fell out. Seriously? He was a captain. He could bleed or sweat, but he never cried. Yet why did he have that look on his face? Six knew Seven better, so he asked, "You didn't accomplish your task, did you?" In other words, he hadn't killed Feng Wu. Sapphiro stared at Seven with wide eyes. That wasn't possible. Seven was a spiritual lord. Chapter 16:27. Chapter 16:27, Untitled. Feng Wu said, "Really?" Feng Sun said, but he soon came back out with a basket and headed for the other side of the hill, so I followed him. Feng Wu narrowed her eyes. Feng Sun said, "There's a secret karst cave there. If this guy hadn't led me there, I would never have found that place." Feng Wu asked then. Feng Sun said, "After that guy walked into the cave, somehow, he turned around and saw me. Feng Wu looked at Feng Sun in resignation. Feng Sun looked perfectly innocent. I didn't expect him to turn around so suddenly. If I didn't go after him, what if he ran away? Feng Wu said, "You idiot. He saw your shadow on the wall. Why wouldn't he turn his head?" Feng Sun said, "Well, you have a point." Then this guy sounded the alarm. Everything happened all at once, and I didn't have time to react. By the time I caught that man with the hat, the other people in the cave had already run off. Feng Wu didn't know what to say. Feng Sun looked troubled. I looked around and saw that there were indeed traces of people living there before, and someone had indeed been held there as a prisoner, but I can't say that it was Chowga. Feng Wu had a strong feeling that she might have lost a lead to find and save Chowga. Without saying another word, Feng Wu quickened her pace. She covered the 10-minute distance in 7 minutes. "Where is he?" Feng Wu turned around and stared at Feng Sun when she saw the empty cave. Feng Sun looked completely at a loss. I knocked him out before I left and tied him to a pillar in the cave. I thought I had taken all precautions. How could he have possibly escaped? Damn it, it's all my fault. Feng Sun felt very guilty. It was a very important lead in saving Chowga, and Xiao Wu had forced that man to reveal himself at the cost of her own reputation. She had then handed the task to Feng Sun, but I'm such an idiot. Feng Sun slapped himself, his eyes filled with guilt. Feng Wu was also anxious, but she calmed down when she saw how worried Feng Sun was. With what had happened, there was no point blaming him. He wanted to help Chowga, but things simply hadn't gone their way. Feng Sun had always been a little careless, and Feng Wu hoped that this incident would help him overcome that shortcoming. Feng Wu ignored Feng Sun, who was still blaming himself. There was an intelligent look in her narrowed eyes. She had always believed that one could learn a lot from behavioral analysis. When she looked at the marks around the pillar, she smiled a little. He wasn't going anywhere. Thump! Feng Wu kicked the wall of the cave. "Xiao Wu, the cave might collapse if you do that." However, before Feng Sun could finish, he heard a loud thump, and the ground trembled. He yanked Feng Wu back and shielded her with his own body. When the dust settled, they saw a man huddled in a rectangular hollow. It was none other than, "It's you." Feng Sun almost exploded when he saw who it was. That was the guy he had tied up before. He thought that the man had escaped. As it turned out, he had been hiding beneath them. "You bastard. You tried to trick me." Feng Sun felt like he had just been swindled. Chapter 1727, Face Slapping, Round 9-2. Chapter 1727, Face Slapping, Round 9-2. All my injuries were from that demon chimpanzee. Luckily, I was able to straighten things out in the end. Otherwise, that beast would have killed me. Sapphiro said angrily. Feng Wu is heartless. How can anyone be so cold-blooded? She only brings us disaster. 7 completely agreed with her. 6 glanced at 7 and asked, Did the demon chimpanzee let you go? Just like that? 7 cleared his throat. Sapphiro asked, What happened? Is that demon chimpanzee so tough? 6 said, The beast is unchallenged in this area, and no one dares to mess with it. If they do, they have to pay for it. So, he turned to look at 7. 7 flushed. My black iron stone is gone. So is my illusion sea dragon grass and poisonous spider bones? 6 asked, What about your dragon stream sword? 7 said, That's gone as well. That was to say, 7 had given the demon chimpanzee everything to bail himself out. Feng Wu almost laughed. No, she couldn't do that. She had to keep a straight face. Feng Wu quickly hid her smile, put her serious face back on, and went back to cooking her pheasant. She had been trying to stay unnoticed, but with 2 spiritual lords here, she couldn't stay ignored for very long. Who is he? 7 then noticed Feng Wu. He couldn't be sure, but he thought he saw the teenager smiling. He's with me, said Sapphiro. 7 frowned. Your Highness, if he's someone you met randomly in the mountains. He wondered if this teenager was Feng Wu in disguise because his physical build looked a lot like hers. At that thought, 7 walked up to Feng Wu, put a hand on her shoulder, and asked the question. You're not Feng Wu, are you? Feng Wu shuddered inwardly. Seriously? Had 7 gained some blind luck? Because he was right. Feng Wu's stomach lurched. What should she do now? Should she fight or deny it? Before Feng Wu could respond, Sapphiro chuckled. Ha ha! 7 Sapphiro laughed so hard that she was almost in tears. She pointed at 7 and said, I now see what they mean by once bitten, twice shy. 7, you used to be such a confident man, but you're so jumpy now. What she said helped Feng Wu. 7's face turned livid. He then turned around and stared at Sapphiro. Sapphiro patted 7 on the shoulder. He's Cat 9, and my senior brother thinks very highly of him. He's a boy, a teenager. How can he be Feng Wu? You shouldn't make that mistake even if you're blind. Don't insult him like that. 7 frowned. Feng Wu gave Sapphiro a big thumbs up in her mind. That was great news. Who could have known? Sapphiro had just done her a great favor. Please go on. Look at that face and that body. He's a boy through and through. How can he be Feng Wu? 7, were you struck dumb by that beast? How can you mistake him for her? Sapphiro looked at 7 in disbelief. 7 was speechless. Chapter 1728, Face Slapping, Round 9-3. Chapter 1728, Face Slapping, Round 9-3. 7 snorted. I must kill this Feng Wu before sunset tomorrow. 6 looked at him and asked, What if you can't? 7 took a deep breath. The demon chimpanzee said that it wanted to catch Feng Wu, chop her into little pieces, and feed her to its baby. The beast will come after me if I can't catch her by then. 6, you have to help me. 6 frowned because he had some difficult missions on hand as well. Seeing 6 frown, 7 said, If you don't have time, just spare me some of your men. I don't need all of them. 5 will be enough. They only need to help me block some roads and tell me Feng Wu's whereabouts. However, 6's face turned livid when he heard what 7 said. His face then went scarlet red. Feng Wu knew that 6 was going to explode. 6. 7 frowned at 6. Will you not even lend me 5 people? 6 didn't say a thing. Sapphiro was confused as well. That was right. 6 had 30 men, didn't he? But none of them seemed to have shown up so far. 6 still didn't say a word. 7 asked, If you can't spare 5 men, how about 3? 6 said, I can't give you even 1 man, let alone 3. 7 said, 6, we're from the same training camp. Why can't you even? They're all dead. 7 said, "What?" 6 looked up and stared at 7. "They're all dead. Dead. Happy now." Feng Wu cringed a little. Roasting that pheasant became the most dangerous job in the world since she was right in the center of the storm. She couldn't wait to run away now. 7 and Sapphiro were both stunned. 7 was still trying to digest the news as Sapphiro stared at 6 in disbelief. "What did you say? Did you say that all of your men are dead? Every single one of them?" 6 snorted with a livid face and didn't say a word. 7 said, "How? How is that possible? Who could do that? All 30 of them? Even a spiritual lord wouldn't be able to do that, right? What on earth happened?" 6 said, "Well, it wasn't a spiritual lord. I know that the person isn't a spiritual lord. I'm just saying that even a spiritual lord couldn't do it. I meant, it was a spiritual elder," 6 suddenly said. Those words shocked the other 2 people again. "What?" Sapphiro and 7 looked at each other, and both were astonished. Sapphiro said, "A spiritual elder? Just like me?" 6 nodded. Sapphiro was speechless. She could only fight a couple of secret guards at a time, but that person who was also a spiritual elder could actually— how could any spiritual elder be so capable? "Don't tell me that you ran into Feng Wu." Sapphiro and 7 cried out in unison. Chapter 1729, Face Slapping, Round 9-4. Chapter 1729, Face Slapping, Round 9-4. 6 frowned. "I don't think so. That girl is only 13 or 14. She was wearing a red dress, is very fast, and knows formations. That's her. That's Feng Wu." Sapphiro and 7 spoke in unison again. 6 looked at them in amazement. 7 said, "Feng Wu is wearing a red dress today. She can run very fast, she knows formations, and she's about 13 or 14. Sapphiro nodded as 7 spoke. 6 still didn't say a word. 7 heaved a long sigh. Somehow, seeing 6 in such a miserable state, 7 felt less frustrated. As it turned out, he wasn't the only one who had been tricked by Feng Wu. Someone else was even more miserable. Although he wasn't doing well himself, the fact that someone else was worse off actually made him feel that he wasn't doing too badly. 6, on the other hand, didn't feel as good as 7. So it was her. 6 clenched his fists. She's the one who saved the prince. Sapphiro and 7 looked at 6 in disbelief. "What did you say?" With everything that happened, 6 didn't feel the need to keep things from them anymore. After all, they were all on the same team. "My master is making a move on the younger prince again," 6 said indifferently. "We should have killed the younger prince by now, but Feng Wu stepped in and saved him." Feng Wu chewed the meat and thought to herself, judging by their calm responses, this isn't the first time that the older prince has tried to take his younger brother out. But Sapphiro stared at 6 in bewilderment, and after some hesitation, she said, "So, Feng Wu, a spiritual elder, killed your 30 men while she was being hunted down by 7. She also saved the younger prince and injured you?" 6 didn't say a thing. 7 was speechless. The 2 men traded frustrated and angry looks. "What we know for certain is that Feng Wu is still in the mountains." 6 smirked. "She's not going to get off this mountain so easily." 5 is guarding the gate at the foot of the mountain. So the gate was indeed guarded. Feng Wu smirked inwardly and felt lucky that she hadn't tried to get down the mountain right away. However, 7, 6, and 5, the older prince wasn't very original with naming his men, was he? Although the names were rather lame, Feng Wu had to admit that they were pretty capable men. "Tomorrow, we will—" Sapphiro beckoned the 2 men to her side and told them her plan. Feng Wu began to frown as she listened. As it turned out, Sapphiro wasn't a complete fool. Her plan to corner the younger prince might be inefficient, but it would work. If that plan was really carried out, the younger prince would have no chance of surviving. He wouldn't be able to escape at all. What should she do? Feng Wu racked her brain. Come to think of it, she was in a rather hilarious situation now. While her enemies were trying all they could to kill her, they had just let her hear every bit of their plan. Feng Wu's eyes lit up as she looked at the dancing flames. She then smiled in satisfaction. A few minutes later, Sapphiro asked Feng Wu, "What's that smell? It's so yummy." Feng Wu lowered her head to hide her smile. She then adjusted her hat. Chapter 1730, Face Slapping, Round 9-5. Chapter 1730, Face Slapping, Round 9-5. She handed the entire pheasant, which was still wrapped in mud, to Sapphiro. "The pheasant is ready. I'm sorry, but this is all I can find here in the mountains." It had been an exhausting day for Sapphiro, and she couldn't keep her eyes off that aromatic fowl. Of course, she wouldn't say no. Thump! Feng Wu crushed the hard mud shell. The aroma immediately filled their nostrils. Starving, Sapphiro stuffed a piece in her mouth. Wow, this is so good. It was so delicious that she thought she was going to bite her tongue off. Sapphiro hummed happily and was almost in tears. She even forgot about the prickly sensation on her neck. Feng Wu then handed 6 and 7 a roasted pheasant each. After that, she picked one up herself, sat down by the tree, crushed the mud shell, and started wolfing the meat down. 7 and 6 were very wary after the way Feng Wu had tricked them. They were indeed famished, but safety was their top priority. Only after seeing that Sapphiro and Cat 9 were all right did they start eating. Wow, it really was scrumptious. After the first bite, the two men couldn't stop. They kept putting more into their mouths. Feng Wu lowered her gaze and smiled. Night set in, and a heavy fog rose up. The silver moon was completely covered by thick clouds. Suddenly, 7 clutched his stomach and his eyes widened. He pointed from Feng Wu to Sapphiro. "It's poison." 7's face turned livid, and he went stiff. A chill ran down his spine. 6 realized it as well. 7 jumped to his feet and pointed at Feng Wu. "You did this." He then charged at Feng Wu like a streak of lightning. Meanwhile, Sapphiro was still stuffing meat into her mouth. She was baffled when she saw the two men's reactions. What happened? What poison? However, at that moment, Feng Wu kicked 7 away when he charged at her. He knocked down a few trees as he rolled away. Sapphiro was speechless. She bolted up and stared at Feng Wu in disbelief. "Cat 9, what are you doing?" Meanwhile, 6 charged at Feng Wu as well. It put a lot of pressure on her. 6 was ranked higher than 7, which meant that he was slightly more capable than the latter. Moreover, he had just made a breakthrough, so the poison was less effective on him. Thump! Feng Wu and 6 exchanged a blow in midair. While Feng Wu stumbled back, 6 held his ground. Die! Holding his sword, 6 charged at Feng Wu. Sapphiro was dumbfounded. She didn't know how to react to what had just happened. "Cat 9, did you just poison them?" Feng Wu was still Cat 9 in Sapphiro's eyes. That was because, since Feng Wu had a chance to set Sapphiro up, why not? At that thought, Feng Wu said loudly, "Your Highness, these two men are up to no good. They have evil plans for you. They want to defile you. If I didn't poison them, they would get what they want." Chapter 1731, Face Slapping, Round 9-6. Chapter 1731, Face Slapping, Round 9-6. Sapphiro was astonished. 7 didn't know what to say. 6 was rendered speechless. The effect of the poison made 7 and 6 dizzy, and their vision turned blurry. Hearing Feng Wu's words, they grew agitated, which sped up their blood flow. 7 spat out a mouthful of blood. Sapphiro still didn't know who to trust, so she shouted anxiously, "It has to be a misunderstanding. Stop fighting, all of you. Stop it." However, no matter how loudly she yelled, the 3 people went on fighting. "Help us!" 7 yelled at Sapphiro. But Sapphiro hesitated. She didn't know who to help. "This person is Feng Wu. It's her. Come over here and kill her." 7 had fought Feng Wu before, so he was familiar with her stances and the way she dodged. Therefore, he was able to guess who she was. But did Sapphiro believe him? Of course she didn't. 7, don't make me laugh. Sapphiro immediately rejected the idea. Come over here and kill her. She really is Feng Wu. 7 yelled at the top of his lungs. Right now, he and 6 had caught both of Feng Wu's arms and pinned her hands behind her back. It was a now or never opportunity. If the two of them weren't severely injured and poisoned, they wouldn't have to turn to other people for help to kill someone like Feng Wu. However, Sapphiro didn't know how rare the chance was. She stumbled back. No, no, no. Cat 9 is the most important person to my senior brother. You can't do this to him. Nicely said. Feng Wu gave Sapphiro a big thumbs up in her head. Suddenly, she lifted her foot and kicked 7 in the head. 7 was already forcing himself to stand up. The impact sent him flying backward, and he fell to the ground. What a sorry sight. 7 threw a dirty look at Sapphiro. How stupid was she? Thump. The blade of 6's sword went for Feng Wu's neck, and she only dodged at the last moment. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. The sword kept slashing down. Feng Wu was attacked from all directions, and she kept falling back. There was then a tearing sound. The blade glinted, cutting off a lock of hair on the side of Feng Wu's face. If she hadn't dodged in time, the sword would have left a bloody cut on her. Finally, Feng Wu was forced to take out her sword. There was only one fallen star sword. Thus, Sapphiro opened her eyes wide when she saw the sword. She stared at Cat 9 in disbelief and murmured, "Why does he have that sword? Isn't that Feng Wu's sword?" "She's Feng Wu." Cough. 7 was so angry that he spat out a mouthful of blood. Thump, thump, thump. 6 charged at Feng Wu. Although he was severely injured and poisoned, he was still a spiritual lord. He was still a very capable man. Just then, Feng Wu made her move. Fatal Thunder. It was the third stance of Fallen Star swordplay, Fatal Thunder. Pressing a hand to his chest, 7 struggled to sit up. He then stared at Sapphiro. "Can't you see? She used Fatal Thunder. That's Feng Wu's Fallen Star swordplay, Fatal Thunder." Chapter 1732, Face Slapping, Round 9-7. Chapter 1732, Face Slapping, Round 9-7. Right now, Sapphiro was completely dumbfounded. No, it couldn't be. This couldn't be happening. No, it wasn't like that. He was Cat 9. He was a boy. How could he be Feng Wu, that cunning girl? That wasn't possible. You missed the best chance. If we all die here today, it'll be your fault. 7 bellowed at Sapphiro. Then, fighting back his pain, he jumped at Feng Wu. Thump! He struck at Feng Wu with his sword. Feng Wu dodged, but the fair skin of her neck was cut open. Feng Wu was injured. 7 had spared no effort with that strike. After he failed to defeat her with that strike, he didn't have enough strength left for another attack. It was a loud thump. Feng Wu jumped up and kicked 7 in the back. Thump! 7, a spiritual lord, was sent flying by that kick. 7 glared at Sapphiro as his head hit the ground. "You traitor! You betrayed my master! You will be punished by God." Sapphiro was dumbfounded. How did she become a traitor? Infuriated, 6 charged out, brandishing his sword at Feng Wu. He knew very well that if he couldn't take Feng Wu down quickly enough, they would all die. Feng Wu looked alarmed. 6 was a clever man. His moves were so fast that they gave Feng Wu no time to react. She smirked inwardly. 6 didn't have time to waste, and neither did she. She had to finish this as soon as possible. At that thought, Feng Wu charged at 6. When 6 struck at Feng Wu, she ran into it instead of dodging his strike. Thump! The sword landed on Feng Wu's face. "Cat 9!" Sapphiro cried out in surprise. That was her senior brother's most important person. If he died, she wouldn't know what to tell that man. What should she do now? While Sapphiro was still trying to figure out what to do. Crash! A human skin mask fell off Feng Wu's face. It was slashed into 2 halves and fell to the ground. Once the mask was torn, Feng Wu revealed her real face. Just then, 6 was momentarily astonished. Although 7 had been calling her Feng Wu this whole time, there was no real evidence, and 6 had found the claim dubious. However, when she really showed her face, 6 was baffled when he saw that it really was Feng Wu. But one moment was all that was needed for one capable fighter to defeat another. 6 was still feeling baffled when Feng Wu's fallen star sword pierced his chest. That shocked everyone. 6, a spiritual lord, had just been stabbed. Infuriated, 6 found some strength out of nowhere and threw a punch at Feng Wu. Thump! The power made Feng Wu hurtle backward. Thump! Her back smashed into a tree. But she didn't stop there. She kept hurtling backward. Thud, thud, thud. She only stopped after she smashed through over a dozen trees. Cough, cough. Feng Wu's back hurt so much that she almost passed out. When Sapphiro saw Feng Wu's face, she was dumbfounded. Chapter 1733, Face Slapping, Round 9-8. Chapter 1733, Face Slapping, Round 9-8. She stared at Feng Wu in disbelief. No, this couldn't be happening. This couldn't be real. No. Sapphiro's shriek went through the roof. I don't believe it. Sapphiro almost fainted. You're not Cat 9. You're not him. You're Feng Wu. How on earth can you be Feng Wu? If the fact that this Cat 9 was an impersonator wasn't shocking enough, when Cat 9 turned into Feng Wu, Sapphiro thought she was going to lose her mind. She then recalled how Feng Wu had tricked her, and only just then, she had asked Feng Wu to carry her down the mountain. After that, she remembered how she and the other 2 men had set up a plan to take Feng Wu down. When all those memories came back to Sapphiro, she almost exploded. Feng Wu, I'm going to kill you. Oh, exasperated, Sapphiro picked up her sword and struck at Feng Wu. She was so angry that brandished her sword without thinking about what she was doing. But Sapphiro had lost her best chance. Thump! Feng Wu raised a leg and kicked her away. Feng Wu, you! Sapphiro was infuriated. Feng Wu rose to her feet, one hand pressed her chest. Her face had lost all color. But she was smiling at Sapphiro. Sapphiro said, Are you really Feng Wu? How come you made so much progress? Feng Wu looked at Sapphiro and smiled. You notice, you're a level 7 spiritual elder at least. Sapphiro was angry and frustrated. But you only showed the capability of a level 4 spiritual elder before. That is to say, you hid your true capability from the very start. You cunning scumbag. Feng Wu looked at her and suddenly smiled. What if I told you that I made 3 breakthroughs today? Will you believe me? Like hell I will. Sapphiro thought her head was going to explode. Feng Wu chuckled. Whatever. There's no point talking about that now, is there? Sapphiro said, You. Feng Wu then walked steadily towards Sapphiro with a smile on her face. What on earth do you want? Sapphiro gritted her teeth and glared at Feng Wu. Feng Wu smiled. Can't you guess? Sapphiro asked. Do you want to kill me? Feng Wu nodded. I do. Are you willing to die? Sapphiro was speechless. Feng Wu chuckled. You're still useful for me. How can I possibly get rid of you now? Sapphiro asked. What on earth do you want? Feng Wu smiled. Don't worry. I just want you to know how it feels to lose. Sapphiro asked. What do you mean? Feng Wu said. You'll soon know the answer. All of a sudden, Feng Wu frowned and realized that something wasn't right. When she turned around, she saw that 6 and 7, who had been lying on the ground, had disappeared. Ha-ha! Seeing the look on Feng Wu's face, Sapphiro clapped her hands and laughed. Ha-ha! Feng Wu, I bet you didn't see this coming. Ha-ha-ha! Feng Wu frowned and looked around. She then narrowed her eyes. It was very quiet, and she could hear the sound of the gentle wind. Chapter 1734, Face Slapping, Round 10-1. Chapter 1734, Face Slapping, Round 10-1. How did those 2 men escape? Feng Wu frowned and looked alarmed. But she had to admit that spiritual lords were indeed as impressive as they were said to be. After they were severely injured and poisoned, they were still able to get away without making a sound. Sapphiro guffawed. Feng Wu, you're not invincible, after all. At least, you couldn't even defeat them when they were poisoned. Feng Wu threw a dirty look at Sapphiro. And why were they severely injured? Whose fault was it that they were poisoned? That successfully rendered Sapphiro speechless. Feng Wu snorted. They got away, but you're still here, aren't you? I may not be able to do anything to them, but I can certainly handle you. After that, she grabbed Sapphiro's hair and dragged her away. Poor Sapphiro. She was used to living comfortably and had never been mistreated like this before. It was such a humiliation. Sapphiro yelled angrily. Feng Wu, do you have a death wish? Let go of me. Let go. Feng Wu wasn't in a good mood now. The fact that 6 and 7 had escaped made her vigilant. In the end, Feng Wu had underestimated how powerful spiritual lords could be. She was worried that the two men might be able to force the poison out of their system soon. It had been a while since she concocted the poison, and she didn't have many ingredients on hand. Therefore, she hadn't put too much poison in the pheasants. She was worried that the two men might be able to recover soon. Therefore, when Feng Wu saw the gloating smile on Sapphiro's face, she slapped her, and Sapphiro passed out. Soon, Feng Wu dragged Sapphiro to the swamp. The younger prince had been hiding there the whole time. Wheeze. Feng Wu made the sound that was the secret signal which she had agreed on with the prince. As expected, when she gave the signal, she heard a slight noise from behind a rock a short distance away. Soon, a person covered in mud showed up in front of Feng Wu. Miss Feng. He was thrilled to see Feng Wu, and he quickly rolled toward her in the mud. Feng Wu had taught him to do that, to stop himself from sinking in. Miss Feng, you're finally here. Lying there all by himself in the silent darkness, the prince had almost been frightened to death. Who's this? The younger prince asked in bewilderment when he saw the unconscious person. Feng Wu looked at the prince and smiled. Don't you recognize her? The prince moved closer and was shocked. Isn't it my sister? What's she doing here? She? Feng Wu smirked a little. Take a wild guess. Do you think she knows about the danger you ran into today? The prince went silent. Feng Wu rolled her eyes at the prince. Take your clothes off. The prince was confused. Feng Wu didn't speak and only looked at him. The prince felt embarrassed. But they're so dirty. Feng Wu smiled. That's what we need. All the mud is good for us. We don't have all the time in the world, so stop nagging and change your clothes. The prince nodded obediently. Although he had no idea what Feng Wu was going to do, he still nodded and quickly stripped until he was only wearing his underwear. Feng Wu then took off Sapphiro's clothes and tossed them to the prince. Chapter 1735, Face Slapping, Round 10-2. Chapter 1735, Face Slapping, Round 10-2. He stared at Feng Wu in astonishment. This. Feng Wu glanced at him. Do you see what I'm trying to do? The prince nodded solemnly. Your plan is to have me pretend to be my sister so that I can get off the mountain? Feng Wu nodded and said calmly, the roads are being guarded by capable men, and before long, they'll be doing a grid search of the mountain. When they come back with spiritual pets that have a keen sense of smell, you won't be able to get away even if you hide under the mud. The prince bit his lower lip and nodded. He admitted that Feng Wu was right. His older brother was as determined as he was heartless. He had more capable men than one could think of. The prince said, my brother has many capable men working for him. At least 10 of them are as powerful as 7. Feng Wu said indifferently, so be it. They're not invincible. The prince stared at Feng Wu in astonishment. They were talking about 10 spiritual lords here. The prince still wanted to speak, but Feng Wu waved him off. Get dressed. I don't know when 7 and 6 will neutralize the poison. When they do, they'll take their revenge on me. He was filled with guilt when he looked at Feng Wu, and he became even more determined. Miss Feng, I'm going to marry you, thought the prince. Seeing the look in his eyes, Feng Wu patted him on the shoulder. She put a mask that she had found in Cat Nine's place on the prince's face and had him put on Sapphiro's clothes. Meanwhile, she dressed the unconscious princess in the prince's clothes before burying her halfway in the mud. Feng Wu took out a dagger and pried Sapphiro's mouth open. Blood gushed out. The prince stared at Feng Wu in astonishment. You, what a resolute and ruthless girl. That completely shocked the prince. Feng Wu glanced at him. Do you know why I cut her tongue? The prince asked in bewilderment why. If she starts yelling when she wakes up, she'll ruin my plan. The prince nodded. Feng Wu suddenly smiled. Of course, that's only one of the reasons. The prince said, Feng Wu's voice sounded like a feather dancing in the darkness. The real reason is, she insulted me. The prince's eyes widened. Feng Wu suddenly smiled. Now, are you afraid of me? Only then did he realize that she was scaring him. He blushed and stared at Feng Wu in frustration. Feng Wu laughed. You can't stay so innocent forever. I can save you once, but I can't be there for you all the time. You need to think about it. It would be up to him if he wanted to be a lamb or a wolf in lambskin. The prince clenched his fists. Many of his men had told him that, but he had never listened. But this time he did. After clearing up the area around Sapphiro, Feng Wu led the prince away. The look on the prince's face kept changing, and it was hard to tell what he was thinking. Feng Wu didn't disturb him, because she knew that this night could change his fate. Chapter 1736, Face Slapping, Round 10-3. Chapter 1736, Face Slapping, Round 10-3. Soon, the two of them arrived at the crossroads. The prince was still marching forward, but Feng Wu stopped him and pulled him into a thick growth of grass. He felt only half awake, and he looked at Feng Wu in bewilderment. The grass was tall enough to cover them completely, so if they didn't walk out of it, they wouldn't be spotted. Feng Wu lowered her voice and whispered in the prince's ear, There's a secret guard behind that rock to the northeast. The prince was suddenly alarmed. He looked in that direction and soon saw a shadow under the moonlight. He took a deep breath. There's someone up in the tree to the northwest as well. The younger prince was speechless. See that branch over there? All the branches around it are swaying in the wind, but it isn't. Why do you think that is? The prince asked, Is it because it's fake? Feng Wu said, The branch is real, but it's on someone's back. It can't move because it's been tied up too tight, which is what gives it away. The prince used to think that Feng Wu was on the same level as he was. The longer he observed her, however, the more impressed he was. But that person is the most important one. Feng Wu pointed at a man sitting on top of the tree some distance away. That's the most capable man of them all. If you can get past him, you'll be able to get away. The prince followed Feng Wu's finger, and he had an amazed look in his eyes. That's 5, he said. Although his face is covered, he has a 5 embroidered on his chest. He's the 5th captain of my brother's assassins. After all those years being targeted by his older brother, the young prince knew a thing or two. Feng Wu nodded. That's what I heard from them as well. If 5 is guarding the way, we won't be able to get away. The prince frowned. 5 is all about business, and takes his job very seriously. Feng Wu smiled. But you're Sapphiro now. Only then did the prince remember that he was playing his sister. Feng Wu said, Your sister is on your brother's side. The prince said, But 5 will probably keep me here and only let me go after everything is over. He's always like that. He only takes orders from my brother. Was that so? Feng Wu rubbed her nose, and her eyes lit up. We're not out of options yet. We could try something. Once again, she knew what to do. The prince's eyes flickered as he looked at Feng Wu in amazement. Feng Wu said, Before that, I need to tell you something. It's serious. The prince turned to her with a solemn look on his face. Feng Wu said, I have a bet with Sapphiro. The stakes are very high. If I win, I get to walk away with all the wealth she has accumulated. Wow, the prince cried out in surprise. My sister is very rich. She has a mine of crude spiritual stones. Feng Wu's eyes lit up. After you go back, keep an eye on Sapphiro's property for me. Make sure that nothing is taken away. The prince nodded solemnly. Chapter 1737, Face Slapping, Round 10-4. Chapter 1737, Face Slapping, Round 10-4. When a moment comes, that mask on your face will be useful, said Feng Wu. It's Cat Nine's face. Before Sapphiro comes back, you can do a lot of things when you're pretending to be Cat Nine. The more the prince heard about it, the more amazed he was by Feng Wu. So, the only problem now is to get you off the mountain safely. Feng Wu looked at the prince. She then whispered something in his ear. The prince looked surprised. What are you waiting for? Run. Feng Wu kicked him in the butt. All right. The prince returned to himself and dashed off. As he ran, he yelled at the top of his lungs. Help! I'm Sapphiro, the princess. Feng Wu, you can't kill me. Right now, Feng Wu was playing no one but herself. She snorted. Are you begging me to spare your life? In your dreams. She then drew out her fallen star sword. Murderous energy filled the air. Thud! The sword almost hit the prince, but he narrowly escaped. Feng Wu smirked. Your life in my hands now, and you're not going anywhere. You can't run from me forever. Just die. As she spoke, she struck at him again. The men in black behind the rock and on the tree looked at each other. Seeing that their princess was about to be killed, they stepped out. One approached Feng Wu from behind. The other met Feng Wu head-on, moving at a tremendous speed. We've been searching everywhere for you, and here you are. Feng Wu, we've been waiting for this moment. The older prince's order was to kill both Feng Wu and the younger prince. Those were their two tasks as they remained here to guard the entrance. But the two tasks weren't of the same importance. Killing the younger prince was their top priority. After that came the task of killing Feng Wu. But they could complete the minor mission before getting to the major one. Feng Wu pretended to only be a level 3 spiritual elder when she ran after Sapphiro, and the man underestimated her. How dare a mere level 3 spiritual elder behave so arrogantly in front of us? Chasing our princess? Preposterous. Thump, thump, thump. They started exchanging blows. Immediately, Feng Wu grabbed the man behind her and threw him over her shoulder. The moment she threw him, she launched her killing move. The blade she was hiding between her fingers glinted. Whoosh! It cut the man's throat open. The man didn't expect to actually fight a level 7 instead of a level 3 spiritual elder. Ew! He collapsed before he could finish the sentence. The other man stared at his fallen companion in disbelief. How was that even possible? According to the information they had gathered, Feng Wu was only a level 3 or 4 spiritual elder. How could she have killed a level 6 spiritual elder? Had this world gone insane? Meanwhile, Feng Wu ignored the other man in black and marched towards Sapphiro. One had to admit that the younger prince had some talent in acting as well. He mimicked Sapphiro to the T. As Feng Wu approached, he fell back. Hey, stay away from me. Don't get any closer. I'm the princess of the grassland. You can't kill me. Feng Wu smirked. Sapphiro, how dare you ambush me? Do you think these two weaklings can stop me? Don't make me laugh. As she spoke, she raised her fallen star sword. Chapter 1738, Face Slapping, Round 10-5. Chapter 1738, Face Slapping, Round 10-5. Sapphiro turned to run. The remaining man in black stared at Feng Wu. How dare you ignore me? He grabbed his sword and charged at her. Whoosh! Fallen Star Sword made a perfect arc in the air, and it hit its target. At that moment, the man looked down and stared at his own chest. He had just been pierced by a sword. Feng Wu smiled proudly. What made you think you can stop me? She then pulled the sword out. Instantly, blood gushed out, splashing all over the ground. Some even got onto the prince's face. Feng Wu did it on purpose. With the blood on his face, even if the prince didn't play his part well, Five wouldn't be able to pick it out so easily. At the same time, the prince was shocked to see Feng Wu killing the two men so quickly. He turned around and started running, yelling loudly. Don't kill me! Don't kill me! He wondered where Five was and what he was waiting for. Thump! The prince deliberately fell to the ground. Feng Wu smirked and ran toward him, dragging the tip of the sword over the ground. The tip made a long gash in the ground. Feng Wu smiled maliciously. Were those men the only help you had? So much for the famous princess, Sapphiro. I'm going to send you where you belong. Be clear in your next life. You should never mess with me. The prince fell down and twisted his ankle, but he crawled as fast as he could. He shouted nervously as he moved, "Help! Brother, help!" Feng Wu raised Fallen Star's sword. "Help you? I like to see who would do that." The moment the sword struck down, thump! A leaf appeared out of nowhere, aimed at Feng Wu's throat. How impressive! If Feng Wu didn't know that a spiritual lord was hiding there, she might have actually been injured. But she knew and was prepared. The sword that was aiming at the prince's head suddenly changed direction. Clang! There was the terrifying sound of two weapons clashing with each other. Feng Wu raised the sword in front of her forehead. A spiritual lord was indeed very powerful. It was only a small leaf, and Feng Wu had been prepared for it, but she still stumbled backward. She only steadied herself after retreating 7 steps. "Who's there? Stop hiding. Come out." Feng Wu looked around and shouted. In fact, she already knew that the person was 5, a spiritual lord. That was an intimidating person, but she had to take the risk for the prince's safety. 5 frowned as well. He jumped off the tree and stood in front of Feng Wu. Like the other captains, he wore black from head to toe, and only his eyes weren't covered. What a pair of eyes! They were as dark as an abyss. Feng Wu stared at 5, and 5 stared back at her. Meanwhile, Feng Wu gestured at the prince. She was telling him to run. The prince was worried about Feng Wu's safety. After all, 5 was a cold-blooded spiritual lord. Chapter 1739, Face Slapping, Round 10-6. Chapter 1739, Face Slapping, Round 10-6. However, it was just like Feng Wu had said before. If he couldn't escape, all the sacrifices she had made would go to waste. "Miss Feng, I promise I'll marry you. If you die, I'll marry you at your grave. I'll still recognize you as my official wife," thought the young prince. Despite his reluctance, the prince gave Feng Wu one last look before he bolted. 5 saw the princess run off, but because she was Sapphiro, she was permitted to leave the mountain. So he let her be. Moreover, this teenage girl in the red dress had caught his attention. "You were able to dodge the dagger leaf." 5 curiously looked Feng Wu up and down. He sounded utterly calm and didn't seem agitated at all. Feng Wu was already a dead person to him, so he was in no rush at all. The energy which the spiritual lord gave off almost made it impossible for Feng Wu to breathe. She would never have confronted the man if she had any other choice. "Are you the legendary 5? Feng Wu frowned. 5 nodded. Feng Wu chuckled. "Aren't you supposed to be a spiritual lord? There I was thinking how intimidating you might be. But is that all you can do?" 5 narrowed his eyes. "Young lady, be careful with your choice of words." Feng Wu smiled. "I was under the impression that a spiritual lord should be able to kill me with a single strike, but I blocked your attack. I think I have a right to use whatever words I like." "Young lady, don't you know that I only used 20% of my strength?" 5 smirked. Feng Wu glared at him. 5 grinned maliciously. He enjoyed seeing the smile disappear from her face and the way she stiffened. Right at that moment, Feng Wu suddenly turned around and ran as fast as she could. 5 was speechless. He hadn't expected the girl to give up so easily. The moment she heard about his true capability, she bolted. 5 smirked. "Have you forgotten how arrogant you were a moment ago? Why are you running away now?" Feng Wu wasn't going to answer that question. She had safely sent the prince away, and he would make sure that she didn't lose her bet with Sapphiro. Right now, she was facing her biggest problem. Feng Wu pondered as she ran. What if she hadn't helped the younger prince? She could have worn Cat Nine's mask or pretended to be Sapphiro. That way, would she be able to fool the others and get down the mountain? Feng Wu smiled wryly. Since she had already gotten involved, she might as well stick to it. She was sure that it was the right choice in the long run. She hoped the prince would reward her generously. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. She ran so fast that she felt like she was flying. The wind howled in her ears. Five was close behind her. All of a sudden, Five stepped onto some fruit peel and boom. It exploded. Luckily, Five dodged in time. Otherwise, he would have been injured. But that was only just the beginning. In the next few minutes, Five had to dodge explosions, secret weapons, wasps, other insects, traps, and so. Do you think you can stop me with these petty tricks? Five smirked. Preposterous. Chapter 1740, Face Slapping, Round 10-7. Chapter 1740, Face Slapping, Round 10-7. But because of those petty tricks, Five wasn't able to catch Feng Wu right away. Moreover, the distance between them was getting bigger. Whoosh! Feng Wu jumped into the mud. A moment later, Five arrived as well. He frowned when he saw the black swamp. The mud was giving off a stench. Everywhere he looked, he only saw the undisturbed surface of the swamp. That girl has to be here. As a captain, Five would never jump into the mud himself. Hence, he crossed his hands behind his back and looked at the swamp. With him here, Feng Wu would never be able to run away. He had cornered Feng Wu in this swamp. Just then, all of Five's men arrived. In the assassin organization, every captain had 30 men under them. Unlike Six, who had brought all his men with him, Five had only brought 10. Captain, the 10 men bowed at him. Five gave a wave of his hand and said coldly, "Go search the swamp. Drag her out." Yes. Immediately, all 10 men rushed into the swamp. At that moment, who's there? There was a rustling noise in the cave nearby. Other people might miss it, but it couldn't fool Five's ears. Hence, Five immediately ran in the direction of the cave. The next second, Five was inside the cave. Who's there? In the darkness, two figures sprang out and charged at Five. Thump, thump, thump. They clashed into him. The two men then flew backward and spat out blood when they smashed into the wall. But Five stood there as steady as a rock. Five! The two men cried out in surprise. 6, 7. Thanks to the dim moonlight which shone into the cave, Five finally saw who the other two men were, which only astonished him. He pointed at the other two men. What happened? What did you two do to yourselves? In the organization, the 10 captains were more or less of the same level. Five had never seen the other two men look so miserable. The question silenced 6 and 7. Speak. What happened? Five urged them. 7 knew that he couldn't keep such a thing a secret, so he told Five how Feng Wu had tricked him. After he finished, he nudged 6 with his elbow and said, "Your turn." Hence, 6 told his story as well. Bullshit. Five wouldn't believe it. Feng Wu is only a level 7 spiritual elder. You're telling me that she did this to you? I don't buy it. 6 and 7 said in unison, "She's really good. She's cunning and knows a lot of tricks, and they never seem to end. You won't know where she'll hit you." Five smirked. Cunning? You won't know where she'll hit you? She's just an arrogant girl and nothing more. The story you came up with is just to shirk your responsibility. Gosh. 6 and 7 were so angry that they almost exploded. Chapter 1741, Face Slapping, Round 10-8. Chapter 1741, Face Slapping, Round 10-8. Of course, Feng Wu was cunning. She practically had it written across her forehead. Wait. 7 suddenly realized something and stared at 5. Have you seen her? 5 said proudly. Of course I have. Right now, she's hiding in the swamp, and my men are searching for her. What? 7 and 6 looked at each other, and both saw rage in each other's eyes. That Feng Wu. Let's go. They seemed to have forgotten about their wounds as they rushed out of the cave. They ran as fast as streaks of lightning. 5 frowned. She's just a petty girl. Why do you think so highly of her? Have you forgotten? You're spiritual lords. 5 yelled after the two men. But they were long gone and didn't hear what 5 said. Soon, they all gathered outside the swamp. Where's Feng Wu? Where is she? 6 and 7 used to be very calm men, but they were shaken after having been tricked by Feng Wu several times. 5 put his hands behind his back and shook his head. Suddenly, he recalled something Six said. "Did you catch the prince?" Six shook his head solemnly. "Five said so. I still need to guard the mountain entrance. I'll be in a lot of trouble if I let him run away." Although 20 of his men were there already, Five was still worried. Just then, someone in the swamp cried out, "I found someone. Someone is hiding here." Five was leaving, but he stopped abruptly. He then gave 7 and 6 an indescribable look. "Are you dumb? How did you let her escape?" "See? We got her." "Did we?" thought the other two. 6 and 7 were filled with expectation and doubt. Was that true? Feng Wu, who had set them up so many times, had been caught by 5 just like that. Can that girl be playing some trick again? 7 murmured to himself. Feng Wu was just so intimidating. Other things aside, she had even pretended to be Cat 9 and hid behind Sapphiro. When she was roasting the meat, she had heard all their plans. Moreover, she had even poisoned the food. Despite all the precautionary measures they took, she was still able to poison the 2 of them without raising the alarm. The girl really was a piece of work. 5 couldn't believe 7. He smirked and said, "The 2 of you made up such an unbelievable excuse just to shirk responsibility." 6 was speechless. 7 was speechless. 7 said, "I bet you won't catch Feng Wu so easily." "So do I. Feng Wu will never let you catch her so easily." 6 said solemnly. Crossing his hands behind his back, 5 snorted, "I see that I'll have to convince you with some hard evidence." Chapter 1742, Face Slapping, Round 11, 1. Chapter 1742, Face Slapping, Round 11, 1. 5 had been about to go guard the mountain entrance earlier, but he decided to stay now. He stood there and watched his men carry a person toward him. The person was unconscious and covered in blood. They couldn't see the face. "Water!" 5 gave the order in a cold voice. Soon, one of his men brought back a bucket of water and splashed it all over the person. When the cold water washed away the mud, 6 was astonished. "That outfit, isn't that?" Everyone looked at him in bewilderment. 6 said, "Isn't it the younger prince?" "What?" Everyone was shocked. Talk about a happy coincidence. 6 was so happy that he almost lost his mind. Grabbing the bucket, he poured the water all over the person. Soon they saw the face. It was a familiar face that they all recognized. Isn't it Princess Sapphiro?" They were all astonished. 6 was utterly disappointed. 7 had seen this coming. 5 was the most shocked of them all. He clenched his fists, and blue veins popped on the back of his hands. That was impossible. How could this person show up here? This couldn't be happening. This isn't right. 5 shook his head. She can't be Princess Sapphiro. It can't be her. 6 said loudly, "That's right. Isn't he wearing the prince's clothes? He should be the younger prince. Have you forgotten?" He then told 7. "Feng Wu has human skin masks. She can look like other people." Look like other people? Human skin masks? An idea seemed to strike 5 at that moment. But the idea disappeared too quickly for him to grasp. Just then, Sapphiro woke up. When she woke up to see the familiar faces, she whimpered in excitement. But with her tongue cut, she couldn't utter a word. 6 frowned. This can't be Princess Sapphiro. He has to be the younger prince wearing a human skin mask. He then ran up to Sapphiro and started rubbing her face. Sapphiro was so angry that she grumbled. If she could, she would kick 6 away. Unfortunately, she didn't have any strength left. 6 was disappointed. He moved away and shook his head at the other 2 men. 5 finally came back to himself. He stared at Sapphiro. "Didn't you leave the mountain already?" "Already." Not only Sapphiro, but all the other people gave 5 strange looks as well. 5 had a bad feeling. He stared at Sapphiro and gritted his teeth. "When Feng Wu hunted you down earlier, you ran all the way to the entrance of the mountain, and I came out to save you. Wasn't that you?" No, no, no." Sapphiro shook her head repeatedly. She was so frustrated. She had never gotten as far as the mountain entrance, let alone be chased by Feng Wu. It had to be one of Feng Wu's ploys. Chapter 1743, Face Slapping, Round 11 2. Chapter 1743, Face Slapping, Round 11 2. 5. Princess Sapphiro's skin is wrinkled. She was in the water for at least 2 hours, 7 added. 5 was speechless. Feng Wu has human skin masks, 7 added another sentence. Feng Wu is on the younger prince's side, said 6. If this is the real Princess Sapphiro, and if that was the real Feng Wu, who was the person that ran down a mountain? Who? 5 stared at the others. Everyone fell silent. A name suddenly came to their minds. The younger prince. Everyone looked astonished. Could it really be him? Had he really left the mountain already? Go! They couldn't care less about Feng Wu now. Everyone ran down the slope as fast as they could. Their top priority was to kill the young prince. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. They dashed off without giving Sapphiro another look. Feng Wu was hiding under a slope a short distance away. She had tied some dry grass on her head, which was why no one had been able to find her when she lay there on her stomach. She watched as 5's men searched the swamp. But she wasn't worried because everything was going to plan. The last of Sapphiro's tasks was to help Feng Wu and the younger prince stall for time. As expected, she indeed bought them a lot of time. Hearing their conversation, Feng Wu knew that 5 had guessed the truth. Huh, only now? The younger prince had probably reached the campsite by now. The prince was no fool. He would definitely go to Chieftain Senil. The chieftain didn't want his older son to be too influential, which was why he had groomed his younger son. Without the strife between the 2 sons, the chieftain himself would become the older son's target. Therefore, he would never let the younger son die. Seeing them dash off, Feng Wu smiled a little. Good. That way, the others would only pay attention to the younger prince, and she would be safe. At the end of the day, Feng Wu just wasn't the type who would sacrifice herself for a stranger. She had planned this ever since she started helping the younger prince. When she was about to leave the mountain, crash, she heard a noise. What was that? Confused, Feng Wu looked behind her, but she didn't see anything. So, she resumed walking. A few steps later, she heard a crack. It was that strange noise again. Feng Wu found it very odd. It gave her an uneasy feeling. Somehow, she felt that she had missed something. But what was it? She patted her head. Just then, she heard a whimper somewhere beneath her. Looking down, she saw that it was Sapphiro. Why didn't they take you when they left? Aren't you the most respected Princess Sapphiro? Crouching down, Feng Wu looked at Sapphiro with a half-smile on her face. Sapphiro stared at Feng Wu with eyes filled with hatred. Why was this Feng Wu everywhere? With everything that had happened, Sapphiro would be lying if she said that she wasn't amazed by what Feng Wu had done. Chapter 1744, Face Slapping, Round 11 3. Chapter 1744, Face Slapping, Round 11 3. Feng Wu was going to mock Sapphiro. After all, the princess was like a proud rooster and had been showing off her power in front of Feng Wu. However, before Feng Wu could say anything, she suddenly saw a peak a short distance away. There! Flames were leaping toward the sky. That was an eruption. Immediately, Feng Wu felt as if she had been struck by lightning. She finally realized what she had forgotten. The recovery of the spiritual essence. Emperor Wu had brought them here for the recovery, which only happened once every 3 years. It was said that it would only last for 3 days. In those 3 days, if one stayed in the area of the recovery, they would make very rapid progress. But at the same time, the opportunity also came with great danger. Feng Wu then recalled what she had been told. The place of the recovery was also the legendary land of the spirit source. And that land would produce 1 seed of the spirit source. If one obtained that seed, one would make tremendous progress in their capability. At that moment, Feng Wu thought about Zhuo Qingwan and all the people who had bullied and mistreated her. If she could obtain that seed this time. No, there was no if. She had to get it. Just then, the ground shook violently, and she almost lost her balance. Something else then suddenly happened. Mountain peaks started rising out of the ground like bamboo shoots. They grew as she watched. Meanwhile, something else was changing drastically as well. Feng Wu watched as the ground started stretching out in all directions. If the ground was like a clothes fan before, it had just unfolded. The mountain area was suddenly 10 times what it used to be. That was it. Feng Wu had been wondering why a common mountain like this could become the land of the spirit source. She finally understood now, but she also knew that it was all because of the spirit source formation. When the land of the spirit source disappeared after 3 days, this place would go back to normal, and the event would take place again after 3 years. Sapphiro cried out in terror. Feng Wu followed her gaze and narrowed her eyes. A short distance away, a mountain peak had collapsed, and a landslide was coming their way at a tremendous speed. Hm. Tears rolled down Sapphiro's cheeks. She didn't want to die. She really didn't. She pleaded with her eyes, but she didn't have a lot of hope. Because if she were in Feng Wu's place, she would never take Feng Wu with her in a critical moment like this. However, to her surprise, before the landslide reached them, Feng Wu picked her up and dashed off as fast as she could. Whoosh! Feng Wu had been injured, but after her 3 breakthroughs, her wounds were almost all healed. The roaring landslide was at their heels, and Feng Wu had to run as fast as she could. Just then, a peak suddenly stood in her way. Without thinking, Feng Wu tossed Sapphiro onto it. Sapphiro screeched. Chapter 1745. Chapter 1745, Face Slapping, Round 11, 4. She had thought that she was going to die for sure, but while she was falling, Feng Wu climbed up from below the cliff, caught her, and tossed her up again. Sapphiro was speechless. What a terrifying experience. Sapphiro had never been through something so frightening before. Feng Wu had grabbed some small rocks off the ground earlier, so she quickly climbed up the cliff. Meanwhile, the cliff also stopped the landslide, but more kept coming, and it was rising as Feng Wu watched. Luckily, Feng Wu was faster. When she reached the top, the landslide had only risen halfway up the cliff. Phew! Feng Wu lay flat on her back and wiped away her cold sweat. Meanwhile, she finally had time to look around. When she looked behind her, she saw that she was above a valley. The cliff was at the bottom of a long, steep slope, which was why the landslide had been right behind them. The landslide finally went around the cliff and went on rushing down the mountain. Standing on top of the cliff, Feng Wu could sense the ground trembling at the momentum, and she knew that the change hadn't finished yet and that the energy was still at work. Because of the emerging land of the spirit source, the terrain went through a tremendous change. Hence, mountain peaks rose up like bamboo shoots, and some of them were only hundreds of meters apart. Just then, Feng Wu cried out softly. She seemed to notice a figure on the mountain peak nearby. The figure lay there motionless, as if passed out. Crack! As the terrain changed, cracks covered the sides of that mountain peak. It had to be that person's most unlucky day. That mountain peak was going to collapse, and once that happened, that person would be carried away by the landslide. A landslide was worse than a flood. Feng Wu could get herself out of a flood, but with a landslide, once one was buried under mud and stones, it would be almost impossible to get out. Just then, the person woke up and slowly got up. Feng Wu let out a breath of relief. It seemed that that person would survive. Hey, you can come over, he dashed. Before she could finish, the person slowly rose to his feet and turned around. When Feng Wu saw his black outfit and the number on his chest, she was stunned. 7. Feng Wu was dumbfounded. 7 was also baffled by the sight of Feng Wu. Immediately, there was a terrifying look in his eyes. Feng Wu didn't know what to say. She had just run into her enemy. Below, the landslide was still flowing ferociously. A few hundred meters away, 7 was staring at her with a murderous look in his eyes. Hey, don't get any closer, Feng Wu yelled at 7. But of course, 7 wouldn't listen to her. The mountain peak he was on was so cracked and shaky that it could collapse at any moment. Feng Wu saw Seven take a step back. He was going to use a run-up to reach her. Sapphiro was thrilled to see Seven coming her way, and she whimpered in excitement. Chapter 1746, Face Slapping, Round 11, 5. Chapter 1746, Face Slapping, Round 11, 5. Feng Wu couldn't be bothered to deal with Sapphiro. Right now, her top priority was Seven. Her mind raced. Seven was a spiritual lord. Although he was severely injured, he was still more than good enough to kill her. Therefore, she couldn't let him reach her. Whoosh! Just then, Seven dashed toward her at top speed. His lean, dark figure arched in the air as he aimed for Feng Wu's cliff. The top of the peaks were very narrow. Roughly, they were only 10 meters in radius. Seven had obviously done the calculations, and his aim was very accurate. If everything went as planned, he would land on her cliff. Seeing this, Feng Wu narrowed her eyes. She couldn't afford to let Seven land on her cliff. While Seven wasn't looking, Feng Wu had a handful of beans in her hand. Sapphiro had been watching Feng Wu the entire time, so she noticed this and tried to warn Seven. However, with her tongue gone, she couldn't convey her message efficiently. Seven couldn't understand what she meant until he set foot on the cliff, because he couldn't stop and kept rushing forward. His face went pale. He only managed to steady himself by spinning around. However, at that moment, Feng Wu raised a leg and kicked Seven hard. Seven had used all his strength to stop himself, and Feng Wu's kick was the last straw. Despite his usual calm, Seven cried out. He fell off the cliff, flailing his arms. Unfortunately, he didn't have wings. HM. Sapphiro was so exasperated that she tried to yell at Seven. She then gave Feng Wu an accusing look. Do you want to call me underhanded? Feng Wu glanced at her and said indifferently, That's just survival of the fittest. It's the way this world works, isn't it? Sapphiro still wanted to protest, but Feng Wu chuckled. Seven wanted me dead, so was I supposed to just stand there and wait for him to kill me? Why am I underhanded just because I struck first? Sapphiro, stop using your double standards on me. That rendered Sapphiro speechless. She couldn't think of a retort. But a spiritual lord was very hard to kill. Feng Wu was almost certain that Seven would be finished off this time, but after he dropped over the edge of the cliff, he was able to turn around in the air after he fell 50 meters. Thump! Seven's fingers pierced the cliff face. The gashes on his hands were so deep that the bones showed, but he still managed to hang on. Feng Wu looked down and saw Seven dangling on the side of the cliff like a piece of dried meat in the wind. Feng Wu didn't know what to say. This spiritual lord was tougher than she had expected. To Feng Wu's surprise, after Seven steadied himself, he started climbing. Beneath him, the landslide was still roaring. Chapter 1747, Face Slapping, Round 11, 6. Chapter 1747, Face Slapping, Round 11, 6. He climbed up, sticking his bloody fingers into the side of the cliff. Thump! The sound of his fingers piercing the stone was quite jarring. It gave one the creeps. Just then, crack. The mountain peak, a few hundred meters away, was finally brought down by the landslide. With a cracking sound, the mountain peak fell apart and was soon devoured by the running torrent. The whole mountain peak disappeared as if it had never existed. Feng Wu didn't know what to say. Sapphiro was speechless. Both of them looked astonished. Compared with the power of nature, humans were such petty beings. Seven paled a little. If he hadn't jumped over to this side, he wouldn't have survived. Whoosh! Seven picked up speed. But Feng Wu didn't want him to climb to the top. She picked up a long stick and tried to poke Seven's head with it. Seven was speechless. He was a formidable spiritual lord, but because of his severe injuries, he had to endure this. Normally, such a stick wouldn't have posed any threat to him. But now, he had to shift around to avoid the stick. Down! Down! Feng Wu jabbed him as if she was poking a rat. At first, Seven was almost cornered, but soon his eyes flickered. When the stick came at him again, Seven opened his mouth. He caught it between his teeth. Fengwu didn't know what to say. She tried to pull the stick back, but she wasn't strong enough. Seven smirked. Taking the opportunity, he moved faster. He was about to reach the top when Sapphiro raised her chin proudly at Fengwu. She thought, Seven is coming up soon, and there's no way you can stop him. You're dead. Fengwu gave her a meaningful look. The look gave Sapphiro the creeps, and she wondered what Fengwu wanted. Fengwu suddenly smiled, and it gave Sapphiro a bad feeling. If I can't stop him, you will. Fengwu took action immediately after that. She then kicked Sapphiro. With her tongue cut, Sapphiro couldn't utter a word, but there was a terrified look in her eyes. It was too late for her to do anything. She fell right over the cliff. Fengwu had either calculated the direction, or it was a happy coincidence. Sapphiro fell down to sit right on Seven's shoulders. The impact almost crushed Seven. He would have been able to climb up if he were on his own, but now there was Sapphiro. Whoosh! He plummeted. His nails left gouges in the stone. Hearing the howling wind in her ears, Sapphiro screamed as she fell. The fear made her grip Seven's head and put her hand around his nose and mouth. You're tuning into the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.